back in the 90s, we had this show called Spider-Man the Animated Series, and at the end of the show, Spider-Man meets alternate versions of himself to stop a big threat, and this is now known very popularly as the Spider-Verse, where a bunch of different versions of Spider-Man all team up together to stop a huge threat, but it didn't really gain any traction in the 90s. It was only till this little game called Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions came out, which was released in 2010 on the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, Nintendo DS, and the Wii, and we will definitely get to those last two consoles later in the video because there's some things to say about those last two, but we're talking about the one we are familiar with, which is the main PS3 and Xbox title. I want to say this game was the catalyst for making the Spider-Verse a huge thing, because we are now 15 years out from that game, and we've had a ton of Spider-Verse comics, which some are actually fun and cool, and we've obviously had the Spider-Verse movies and the big 3 live-action Spider-Man all teaming up together. We've had a lot of cartoon Spider-Verse events, so needless to say that this is popular and it's sticking. My favorite part about the Spider-Verse is that you're introduced to a bunch of different Spider people, which should be the appeal, but think about the first Spider-Verse movie. Now a person can say, I like Miles Morales or Gwen Stacy, or you can play the Shattered Dimensions game and say, I like Noir or 2099. Like, there's a bunch of different characters that you get to explore with the Spider-Verse concept, and I personally think that's brilliant because of the variety you get to have with all the different Spider people. I want to go through this game and go through each Spider-Man individually and all their levels and the way their combat systems works and essentially everything about the game, because this, my friends, is the complete breakdown of Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions. We've done complete breakdowns for the Spider-Man shows if you want to check them out, and we have 3 out of the 4 Spider-Man voice actors from my breakdown project voicing the Spider-Man in this game, so this is my big thing I wanted to do for that, so you have a complete breakdown of their biggest Spider-Man roles they've all done. Just to clear up confusion so we don't get all the Spider-Man mixed up, the traditional one is Amazing Spider-Man, the youngest one is Ultimate, who is wearing the black suit, we have 2099, and finally Noir. Amazing being voiced by Neil Patrick Harris, Ultimate by Josh Keaton, Noir by Christopher Daniel Barnes, and finally 2099 as Dan Gavalzin. And we didn't go over his show just for the fact that there's nothing to break down. It's a more sillier show than the other ones. This is going to be a long one, so as always, sit down, get some popcorn, or do whatever it is you're doing, and enjoy. I just want to mention that none of the gameplay footage is mine. Mostly everything is from MK Ice and Fire, so hopefully he doesn't take this down. I did try getting in contact with him, but I got no response, and I really needed gameplay for the video, and I don't have anything to record the game with. So please don't take the video down, good sir. If you even come across this video.
We were sitting in my office one day and we were discussing what we could do for the next step in the Spider-Man franchise. At some point we stumbled upon a picture of Spider-Man 2099 and he was like, oh, is that a bad guy? No, that's his Spider-Man. We started looking at different versions of Spider-Man and somebody in the team came to us and said, there are a lot of great possibilities out there, I'd like to play them all. And we were like, play them all? That's genius. So that's basically how it started. For the 4 different worlds, we went with 4 different teams. Each team was responsible for one dimension.
In our game, you have Amazing Spider-Man with all his web-based attacks and crazy web acrobatics.
Since Spider-Man 2099 has web foils right next to his arms, we've inspired ourselves by base jumpers.
He has lighting mechanics, so he can throw himself down buildings. We have Ultimate. He wears the black suit. That gives him a bit of an edge. He enters rage mode that blasts everything around him.
Noir is completely different. Now we slow down the pace, we really get into the stealth aspect of being a spider. Spider-Man will have to navigate through the shadows and take down the enemies one by one.
Hey there, true believers! Watch as once again frightening forces are at work in our world, ready to wreak havoc with our very existence.
The beginning of this game has Stan Lee narrating the opening events, which I think makes this a great game already. Love anytime Stan gets added in any way in shows, games, and movies. It's always a treat. We start at Empire State University, where Mysterio is attempting to steal the Tablet of Order and Chaos to sell on the black market. Suddenly, the Amazing Spider-Man appears to confront him. During combat, Amazing Spider-Man breaks the tablet, and a weird green mist fills Empire State University as Mysterio escapes. Madam Web then appears. She tells Spider-Man that the tablet is a powerful ancient artifact that is spread across 3 different dimensions. She then tells Spider-Man that she has enlisted the help of the Spider-Man from those dimensions. She states that if the pieces of the tablet are not gathered, all of reality will be destroyed. We then go to the tutorial cutting between the 4 Spider-Men. Amazing You teaches you the movement along with how you use your Spidey senses. Ultimate teaches you how the web sling, 2099 teaches you combat, and Noir teaches you his stealth gameplay. That is the main plot of the game, and essentially you have to grab the tablet fragments from a bunch of Spider-Man's different enemies in each dimension. There's a total of 13 different boss enemies in the game, with each being very distinct in their own ways, and with each Spider-Man having a stronger attribute in some areas than the others. Your gameplay style also changes between each of the different Spider-Men. Kraven. Amazing's new and improved spider sense leads him to a tablet fragment. He climbed up a building to find a jungle-themed room with the tablet seemingly ripe for the taking. Sensing a trap, he cautiously entered, proving his deduction correct as arrows shoot from the walls and a cage drops, narrowly missing him. However, as he reaches for the tablet, knockout gas fills the air, and from the smoke emerges Kraven the Hunter. Amazing awoke in a jungle discovering spider tokens, the game's upgraded currency, which I couldn't help but grab every single one of them. Kraven revealed the tablet's immense power, intending to use it to crush Amazing. Kraven offered the tablet as a reward if Spider-Man could survive his gauntlet. This led into a tutorial for the Web of Destiny, the game's upgrade system. This system, which also features level-specific challenges like defeat 10 enemies or perform 5 consecutive web swings, offers an interesting approach to challenges that boost replayability. If you finish a certain amount of challenges, then you unlock combat and character upgrades, and you use the spider tokens to purchase the upgrades, and a lot of these upgrades are really great and add a lot to the combat system if you actually care about giving variety to your combat. After more banter, Kraven informed Amazing of the many challenges ahead, including long-range weaponry and hand-to-hand combat. Soon, hunters, Kraven's loyal disciples, appear. Kraven then arms his men with guns, leading to a section where Amazing zipline from pillar to pillar, taking them out. After a few more basic fights, the perspective suddenly shifted to Kraven's sniper rifle. Amazing had to dodge Kraven's bullets while fighting enemies and tricking Kraven into shooting trees to clear a path. I very much enjoyed these sections, but the camera can be a bit wonky sometimes, so it's a bit hard to tell sometimes when an enemy is hitting you, but I did like we got a cool perspective from Kraven's scope, but I think it probably could have been implemented a bit better. After this, Amazing was led into an arena, challenged by a muscular skull-headed figure with a club. And these are your typical bigger enemies of the game, and each different level has one of these. Upon defeating this figure, Spider-Man faced Kraven the Hunter himself. It involved dodging him, attacking him, then he would get up on a pillar with spikes coming from the ground, so you'd have to web strike him and then repeat. After defeating Kraven, Amazing kicked him out of the arena and followed him into a cave, discovering that Kraven had used his tablet fragment to enhance his strength. After dispatching some goons and pressing 5 buttons, Amazing uncovered an elevator to a hidden arena where Kraven challenged him to one last duel. This final boss fight against Kraven was easy. Again, do the same thing, dodge his attack him, repeat, so he'll get up on those pillars, but just knock him down and repeat what you were doing. It's as simple as that. We knock Kraven out and we have a tablet fragment recovered. The boss fights for this game are like that, it's just them having the same attack pattern, you figure it out, and then you beat them. For this one, the tablet was supposed to make him stronger, but he didn't feel any stronger, so the boss just felt lacking. Every boss in this game has 2 phases, one where you fight them without having the tablet, and then one where you fight them with having the tablet. Kraven's level was fine, there wasn't anything too special about it in my opinion. You're just chasing him through this generic looking jungle place. It did have some cool set designs like the gladiator cage and it looking like some hidden mythical thing you'd find in the jungle, but truly there's nothing too great about it, it's just very basic. Hammerhead. The next level opens with Noir's narration, painting a grim picture of New York's deteriorating state. He's acting on a tip from Felicia Hardy, which proves accurate. From a rooftop perch, Noir spots 2 thugs examining a fragment of a mysterious tablet, bantering about its origin. Suddenly, a voice cuts through the air. A car pulls up and Hammerhead emerges, dual pistols in hand. He reveals that the Goblin knows Spider-Man is also after the tablet and intends to stop him. As Hammerhead and his thugs drive off, Noir gives chase, web-slinging onto the back of their car. The thugs notice him and Hammerhead orders them to fire. Noir evades their gunfire, disappearing from their sight, and the level begins. The initial segment is a stealth-focused infiltration. Hammerhead's voice echoes, detailing his plans to his thugs, after Noir violently webs up a few unsuspecting thugs. Hammerhead opens a door, revealing a train yard worker held hostage as collateral. It turns out there are more workers, and after rescuing them, Noir navigates through a vent. Below, he sees Hammerhead chastising and knocking out his men for failing to eliminate Noir. Hammerhead then calls out Noir, ordering his thugs to maintain watch while he sets another trap. And Noir uses his webbing to tear apart a section of the wall, entering a warehouse with Hammerhead's best men. Following another sequence of stealth gameplay, Noir finally catches up to Hammerhead. Hammerhead challenges Noir to a direct confrontation, mounting a heavy machine gun in the center of a railroad crossing. We have to hide in the shadows to evade the machine gun, and if he spots you, then he starts to shoot at you. Easily just web sling in the dark spots, go around him, and start knocking him out. You only have to do this 3 times, and you beat his first phase. Hammerhead ends up delivering a cheap shot and escapes. Noir has to rescue 5 more hostages, guiding them to a designated safe point. Once they're secure, Hammerhead reappears, demanding a mano-a-mano fight as he absorbs power from the tablet fragment. Well, however, he still has one last trick. He dispatches his men onto active railroad tracks. Noir must defeat them while dodging oncoming trains. After clearing out his remaining forces, the final fight with Hammerhead truly begins. This encounter involves throwing debris at Hammerhead to provoke him into launching bombs. These bombs will destroy devices in the area, filling it with smoke that Noir can use to blind Hammerhead, creating openings for takedowns. Rinse and repeat until the end, which is resolved with another first-person boxing segment with Noir recovering the tablet fragment. I quite enjoyed the boss fights with Hammerhead because you did have to be precise on what you were doing. Hiding in the shadows in the first encounter made me feel like I was playing a stealthy character, and I had to be careful on what I was doing, and it feels super rewarding if you don't get spotted at all, especially during all of Noir's stealthy sections. While Noir's stealth gameplay isn't anything to write home about, I quite enjoyed it because it keeps making me think about what my best move would be. The level's design was fine as well. This one takes place in a train yard, and it fits Noir's atmosphere very well with this dark 1930s gritty environment. But each place I went into the train yard, I wasn't impressed. You're essentially going into generic building and that's it. But I can't help enjoy the noir feel to everything because it's supposed to be this darker area and it fits well, especially with Hammerhead as the villain. A crime boss just felt right with this environment. Again, fine level. Let's get into the next one.
The fact that I had something to do with his origin and that today he's one of the world's most recognizable and popular superheroes. Well, as you can imagine, it's a great feeling. I've been asked what aspects of my character do I see in Spider-Man, and I would say his courage, his nobility, his sense of always doing the right thing. I would say the greatness in that man in some way reminds me of me. I think the idea of a player being able to be 4 different Spider-Men in one game is just such a clever idea. It's like a player having 4 games in one. He can be 4 different versions of the same great hero. I think probably one of the reasons for Spider-Man's enduring popularity is the fact that he's probably the most human of all the superheroes. He has these personal problems, which makes it easy for an audience to relate to him. As Spider-Man is sort of the superhero who could be you.
Hobgoblin. The level opens with Spider-Man 2099 swinging through the city. His spidey sense picks up a tablet fragment, but something feels off. It seems as if the fragments are closing in. All of a sudden, the Hobgoblin, a new antagonist for this version of Spider-Man, lunges at 2099 onto a nearby building, then throws him off. Gameplay starts with a diving section. You must dive through the air to catch and punch the Hobgoblin. It's a fun sequence, and it would later reappear in the game's sequel, Spider-Man Edge of Time. Well, actually, you would have a lot of these in that game, which is fine with me. Those are fun. After 2099 sends the Hobgoblin flying onto a nearby building, the Hobgoblin gets up without a scratch, stating that his nanofiber wings broke his fall. 2099 questions how he acquired such technology, but the Hobgoblin refuses to answer. This leads into a boss fight. The first phase involves dodging bombs and throwing them back at the Hobgoblin to knock him out of the air so you can punch him. It reminds me of the Spider-Man friend or foe Green Goblin fight in that game. However, this encounter has no consequences as the Hobgoblin flies off, tricking the officers into thinking you two are partners in crime. This leads to 2099 having to fight the officers while you receive a tutorial on accelerated vision, allowing 2099 to slow down time. It's pretty fun and adds a lot to the Spider-Man's moveset, making him the quickest out of all the Spider-Men and giving him a unique flair. Mid-fight with the officers, the Hobgoblin crashes the party, forcing you to deal with both simultaneously. This fight is a repeat of phase 1 of the first encounter with the addition of some officers. Once enough damage is dealt, the Hobgoblin blows up the elevator shaft, causing Spider-Man to have to catch it. After crawling up the elevator shaft, Spider-Man finds room with more officers to fight. He then finds the Hobgoblin at the end of the hall, asking him his identity since 2099 has fought goblins before, but this one is new. The Hobgoblin says answering the question would ruin his fun as they both jump off the building, leading to another diving section. This ends with another fight with the Hobgoblin, but this encounter doesn't even leave a scratch as the Hobgoblin flies away, causing 2099 to give chase. After another hallway of officers to fight, the Hobgoblin tells 2099 to meet him up to the top for the final encounter. It turns out the Hobgoblin can use the tablet fragment to warp reality. The fight mainly involves you taking out his illusions, which cause him to attack as he did at the start of the level. 2099 realizes that the Hobgoblin wings were made by Alchemax and grabs the tablet fragment. I always find it funny that 2099's whole villain, like most of the time, is Alchemex. By the way, the Hobgoblin was created for this game, and I'm just assuming that was because 2099 didn't have too many interesting villains at the time, so they created some for this game, giving him all new villains. I think the villains he gets fit well with the aesthetic he's given, and I feel like they came right out of the comic books, even though they're original villains. Hobgoblin was fun. I did think this one played a lot more into the 2099 aspect of things, with them showing flying cars, these very tall cityscapes, and the city just feels very fast paced, and that works so well for the character. And considering he feels the fastest, especially with the accelerated vision ability, I think it all works tremendously well. It's like nothing stops moving. Everything is constantly on the move, and you are too. This game is amazing with the sets for each world because they do a good job, even though a lot of them are fairly basic. Like this one is Nouvea York and the style for it fits well. There's not much to say here, honestly. A fun experience with some fun gameplay mechanics. Electro. The level begins with the Ultimate Spider-Man swinging through a forest, eventually arriving at a power plant. Inside, he finds Electro, flaunting the power of a tablet fragment. Gameplay starts with Electro showing off his new abilities, activating trucks, and creating small electrical duplicates of himself.
See what I can do now? I am so impressed. I've never seen anyone start a truck before.
He then blocks the path forward with an electrical current, forcing Spider-Man to zipline between power lines to disable the obstruction. Once the path is open, Spider-Man chases Electro into a tunnel where Electro electrocutes a water pump, causing the room to overflow and endangering plant workers. After saving the workers, they open a door for Spider-Man, revealing a room where Electro is charging himself using a generator. This triggers the first boss fight of the stage. This initial encounter is straightforward: dodge Electro's electricity beams and attack when you have an opening, which funnily enough has been most of the villains we face so far. Attacks with little differences between bosses, and I think that makes the game's bosses to be a bit of a weak point of this game so far. Dodge attack, wait for a chance to strike, the villain might use an attack or something you have to snap him out of, then repeat. It's pretty much been that way, and while I still enjoyed fighting them because I'm a sucker for beat 'em ups, I think they could have added a bit more creativity to these fights considering there's only 13 levels to the game. So I would say for some players it could be a drag to deal with bosses because you're doing the same repetitive thing over and over again. Even for me, I was like, can we do something different to spice things up? After taking enough damage, Electro tells Spider-Man,
You think you're so hot, don't you? Actually, now that you mention it. Well, guess what, twerp? That's just one of the generators in this joint. And the more of them I drain, the stronger I'll get.
And flies away. After chasing Electro into the street and fighting more electrical monsters, Ultimate Spider-Man has had enough. He gets pissed off with an aggressive tone and says,
Hey, get off me! Get off! I said get off me, you little freaks! Oh man, I knew this would happen. This suit! I gotta get it off me before
He decides to fully utilize the black suit, unlocking Rage Mode. This mode allows Spider-Man to go berserk, dealing more damage and using his symbiote powers to his full advantage. And this mode is so much fun. You take out huge waves of enemies in this mode and you feel unstoppable. I say this is better than Spider-Man 2's because you do feel powerful in that version, but this one makes it much more impactful in my opinion. And it also rewards you for doing good with the black suit. So each time you hit an enemy that fills up the rage meter while you are in the rage state. So if you're playing at your best in every fight, you can constantly keep using Rage Mode, but obviously you have to build it up first so you have it. I heavily enjoyed this mode and it made me feel like a powerhouse. And that's what the symbiote should be doing. They could have easily just given him his regular Ultimate Spider-Man suit and have this Rage Mode add to his black suit mode, but I did like that it differentiated him from the other Spider-Man. Plus the black suit is just so sexy. I love the purple hue they have to it, matching his Ultimate Spider-Man design perfectly, and he has the symbiote suit for one issue in that series, so I felt like it was better put to use in this game. The chase continues until Spider-Man arrives in an area full of generators. This leads to another boss fight where you must wait for Electro to lower his energy field before attacking, all while preventing him from reaching a generator to regain health. After defeating him, Electro takes a cheap shot, electrocuting Spider-Man and making his escape. Following more pursuit, Electro blocks Spider-Man's path and swarms him with enemies, and this is where you put the black suit to full use, making you feel unstoppable. And I just absolutely love that. Once the path is clear, Spider-Man sees Electro overcharge an area of the power plant, blocking the way forward and putting even more workers in danger. In this section, you must guide workers to terminals and defend them from the electrical monsters. After rescuing the final 2 workers, they open a special door for you. Inside, you find Electro, who is transformed into pure energy, being of immense size. This leads to the final encounter with Electro. He is too powerful to damage directly, so you must bait him into attacking the dam behind you. After drowning Electro, Ultimate Spider-Man grabs the tablet fragment, and the level ends. This level, I found the location to be more interesting. It's just the level itself kind of sucked. You're going through multiple tunnels and all these electrical grid things. It's fine. Every level has been fine in the first act. Again, in the boss fights, there needs to be more things to do. And I did appreciate in this one for the second stage with the tablet that you had to make Electro destroy the dam to finish him off. And you actually got to spam a certain little button movement that you do for some other games. This boss actually reminded me more of a God of War type of boss where you are fighting this bigger enemy. He has attacks you have to dodge and you have to spam a button at a certain point to stop him. Not much to this one. Let's move on to the next. Act 1 Conclusion. After completing each of the Spider-Man stages, we cut back to the Empire State University. Stan Lee continues to tell the story, saying he's scared of the mysterious power if Mysterio manages to collect the pieces of the tablet of order and chaos. We then cut to the inside of the university, showing Mysterio torturing cops with snake monsters. He stops, however, as his piece of the tablet shows images of the other Spider-Man collecting fragments. After seeing this, he then sets out to collect the tablet fragments himself, and thus ends Act 1. I think this was a great setup for the first act, introducing us to all of what we were in for with all these different Spider-Man and with how each of them plays differently. The core gameplay mechanics are the same for all of them, but they have something that adds to them as well. Noir gives you a more stealthy approach, and that's the main way you must take out enemies because his attacks are a lot weaker compared to the others. 2099 is fast with his movements, and we are given a slow down time button, and it makes that rush feel even better. Ultimate has Rage Mode, giving us an absolute powerhouse, a deadly Spider-Man taking out anything in his path. And Amazing. Well, you see, Amazing, I hate to say this, but Amazing kind of sucks. Amazing has nothing special about him, and that I feel limits his replay value and just makes his levels more boring because I always wanted to play as the other Spider-Man just because they all had such a fun way to play them. But I will say he gives you a good chance for combo variety, but I mean you can still use all of his combos on the other Spider-Man, so it's just like what makes you special in terms of gameplay? Amazing is boring to play as for me, and that's a shame because he's the main Spider-Man, the Spider-Man that we all know. Maybe give him gadgets like in the Insomniac games or make his mainly web-based combat a big part of his combat and not just part of his combat system. I'll talk about each Spider-Man individually at the end, but I think it's more important to understand what I'm enjoying, what I'm disliking, and what I think could be improved.
We're dealing with a combat game here.
In our game, you have Amazing Spider-Man with all his web-based attacks. He will use his web to grab stuff and slam his enemies.
His web does great shapes like hammers and cannonballs. He is super strong as a character, so I mean, he got the full package.
Amazing Spider-Man is the one where I was very attached to it in the production. And the combat system with the web was hard, and I was not sure where I was going with this. And at the end, I think it paid off.
So we're doing some animation here. We have some muscle deformation here, which we didn't have before.
And then we have 2099. He's quick in his attacks. He will teleport himself to enemies from one to the next. He will jump on a guy, leaving like a holographic trail next to him, and he will have much more reach than all the other Spider-Man with his claws.
He must make good use of spider sense as well because he has to slow down time whenever projectiles are coming at him.
We have Ultimate.
The black suit with the tendrils will provide something that has a lot of energy.
He enters Rage Mode that blasts everything around him, and then he will become super powerful for a given amount of time. Noir is much more your tough guy, almost like a bar fighter or something like that.
So you have to take a stealth approach and web your enemies one by one.
You will be able to web grab a guy from down below and slam him on the walls. We do have first-person sequences where you could grab the guy and punch him in the face, but really close up.
You'll have a chance to beat up the villain up close and personal. This is a rewarding moment, sort of a candy to the player.
It's greatly satisfying to just be able to finally say to Kraven, shut up.
We tried to create a different feeling for each character, but at the same time we didn't want the player to get lost in various button combinations. So each character has the same set of moves that looks and feel different. You can unlock a combo for every character and you can try it in the game right away.
It will be the same kind of button inputs that you have to do from one Spider-Man to the next, but the visual effect is going to be completely different, and it's just awesome.
Offhand note, but you know what I do enjoy about this game is that I feel like the other Spider-Man, most likely Ultimate, would have been replaced by Miles, since you know he originates from the Ultimate Universe and he's one of the younger Spider-Man. And I like that this game came out before Miles came out because I think this variety of Spider-Man works so well. Plus another reason they would have added him is because he's popular now, and I like how 2099 and Noir get their own chance to shine in this game because they are such a core staple of the Spider-Verse and some of my favorite Spider people, and I just can't help but love having Ultimate Spider-Man here from the comics. Like, I don't think that would have happened either nowadays, because for some reason movie studios and games and all that, they don't like to bring characters straight out of the comics. It's like they're kind of afraid to. And I mean the same character from the comics, like exact adaptation. Like, they made a whole Ultimate Spider-Man video game, and that's literally an exact adaptation of the Ultimate Spider-Man comics. Like, I don't see that happening now because comics are big, but they tend to stay away from stuff like that now. And it's a shame because I love seeing Ultimate Spider-Man in here because he's one of the Spider-Man I grew up with. And I've read every story with him, so it feels like I've already been on a journey with him, and now I get to play as him. Like, that's great for anyone who enjoyed his stories. So I'm so glad that he wasn't Miles, not because I don't like Miles, but because I think Ultimate just fitted better. Miles wasn't even created yet, so he couldn't have even been in the game. So I think we were lucky when we did get this game, but I could totally see a vision for doing a second one of these and having Miles in one. Getting back to everything though, I like how all the bosses so far really fit within the world that each Spider-Man was in. Kraven felt natural for the main Spider-Man, Hammerhead definitely fit Noir's gritty and dark world, Hobgoblin's design and him using tech from Alchemech seems like he just came out of a comic book, even though he was originally made for the game, but he fits 2099's world so well that I guarantee most people that didn't read the comics couldn't tell. Electro fighting Ultimate just felt right in every way, especially since he's a more powerful villain and he's wearing the black suit. Act 1 I was impressed a lot by. I hadn't played this game in I think over a decade now, and I still thought everything was great. All the Spider-Man have such fun dialogue, learning with what each one could do, giving them all a base is what we're in for. I generally had a good time. It feels like a beat 'em up, and that's what it is. It's not trying to be this masterclass combat of a game, it's just having fun with what it's doing, and I totally appreciate that. It seems like there was a genuine thought and care put into each world. That's all I have to say about Act 1. Let's get into Act 2. Sandman. Amazing Spider-Man finds a tablet fragment in the middle of a sand pit on a construction site, but as soon as he goes to retrieve it, his spidey senses go off and he is slammed into the ground by a sand hand. After getting back up, he sees Sandman right in front of him holding a piece of the tablet fragment. After some not-so-friendly banter, Sandman starts a sandstorm and the level begins. You are in pursuit of Sandman in the form of a giant sand tornado. You must zipline from pieces of debris until you get in range of a water container that Amazing Spider-Man spills on Sandman, turning him from a tornado into mud. You then go immediately into a boss fight where you must burst these water pipes or throw water barrels at him to make him vulnerable to your damage. Once enough damage has been dealt, Sandman flies away, saying that he has another idea on how to deal with him. Amazing Spider-Man then walks into a shed to find that the exit is blocked off by sand. As Sandman realizes that he doesn't have to fight Amazing directly anymore, he then proceeds to spawn sand monsters that you must defeat by getting them wet, then punching them to death. Once you clear out the room, the path will open to show another sand tornado that you must put out with water at the end of another section that is filled with ziplining from pieces of debris. After collapsing the water tower on Sandman, he then flies off into these abandoned mines. Spider-Man follows him. After fighting more sand monsters, Amazing finds Sandman, who has become a giant. This is the second boss fight. You must trick Sandman into hitting these carts full of water. These will then turn his fist into mud, which you then must damage. The cycle rinses and repeats until the end, where you must throw a water barrel at his head to do a decisive blow. However, it does not appear to be enough as Sandman flies away into another section of ziplining from pieces of debris to reach another water tower. They do add enemies you have to defeat this time though. Sandman then flies back into the mines where, after pursuing him for a little while, defeating sand monsters along the way, you find that he's built a wall. But luckily there's a drill right next to it that can penetrate it, and the worker who operates it is conveniently being attacked by sand monsters. Amazing saves the worker and helps him drill out of the cave by protecting the drill from even more sand monsters. This leads into a section where you must run away from Sandman, as he says the tablet fragment has made his mind the most powerful it's ever been. After getting shot out by the mine by a blast of sand, Amazing finds himself in the middle of Sandman's tornado with 3 Sandman talking to him at once. Apparently Sandman can't handle the tablet's power as his consciousness is being spread too thin. This leads into the final fight where you must zipline around the debris, finding water barrels to chuck at the sandheads to do damage. As the fight goes on, you'll hear Sandman switch between begging for your help and wishing you were dead. The level ends pretty abruptly as Sandman just disappears and another tablet fragment is acquired. I really dislike this one because it feels rushed. You feel like you're doing the same thing over and over again. Get Sandman with water, beat him up, repeat. It's not particularly engaging in any way, and I found the level absolutely frustrating a lot of the times because you also have to defeat Sandman's goons with water barrels around the map, and when you're throwing them, there's no aim to who you're throwing them at. So you can be trying to throw the barrel at another enemy to try and damage him because they're invulnerable if you don't do that, and end up hitting another enemy that you didn't want to hit, or the barrel goes in a different direction than where you wanted. So it gets super frustrating because the aim detection is so bad. So it gets super frustrating trying to take them out, and sometimes it'll take 2 or 3 barrels to even take out an enemy. For some reason, the enemies in this level have way too much health because you could be punching them for probably a minute straight, and it's just boring. I ended up just spamming the same button over and over again until I took them out because I couldn't be bothered to use a million combos just to take them out. This level was genuinely a frustrating time for me. I hated every bit of it. Sandman wasn't utilized in a great way, and that's basically every Spider-Man game just because of how powerful he is, so he's quite hard to implement into a game. This one didn't make much sense, he just disappears after you've beaten him, and also the boss fights were so ass. Okay, first boss fight, throw water barrels at Sandman, then hit him. He's literally a goon with more health and has a better chance of hitting you back. The second boss fight, just get him to hit the water barrels. Not sure if that one counts. The third one with the 3 heads, all you do is throw the water barrels and hit the heads, and then beat them up. I'm tired of that cycle. I hate the water barrels and I hate damage sponges, which is the whole level. I'm done with this level. It's bad. The environment isn't anything too great and very basic. There's no standout moments in the entire level. Okay, wait, maybe there was one where he's chasing you out of the mines. That section was kind of cool, but it's very short. Anyway, next one. Vulture. The level opens with Noir's narration where he talks about the Vulture, and we learn that he's a wanted man, or bird, I guess, and that he's a cannibal and he ate Spider-Man's Uncle Ben, which is insane to drop in the intro, but that did also happen in the comics. But that's great that they established some lore here, and I love that because this lore might make you want to know more about this world and this character. As he talks, swinging over the New York skyline, the camera pans down to an alley showing the Vulture eating a rat. As the Vulture dives at his prey, Noir appears scolding him about his diet. With that, the Vulture runs away and Noir gives chase beginning the level. It starts in an alley filled with thugs that you have to use stealth takedowns on while pursuing the Vulture, who is always one step ahead. This section ends with Noir crashing a bar and having to fight some thugs. I love this bar sequence because it's a bar fight in this Noir style with him kicking ass. I'm a sucker for bar fights in media. After clearing the room, you hear the Vulture scold one of his henchmen before throwing him out a window. Noir pursues him, but he's just too slow. Noir then climbs up the side of a building, and then we get into a cell section. Here you have to stay on the side of the building, avoiding spotlights and taking out the thugs. At the end of the building, Noir perches on a ledge where he eavesdrops on a conversation between a couple of the thugs at the connecting warehouse. They say that the Vulture is acting scared, and that makes them scared because whatever scares this version of the Vulture must be absolutely terrifying. After dropping in on one of them, Noir walks into the warehouse where he's jump scared by the Vulture, leading into our first boss fight. The fight involves you just punching the Vulture until he jumps onto the girders above. This causes Noir to have to use spotlights to stun the Vulture so he can punch him again. This cycle repeats until Noir kicks the Vulture through a window, sending them both spiraling towards the ground. The Vulture uses this opportunity to somehow knock him out and bring him to an active train track. Once Noir wakes up, the next section involves you running away from a train, then catching up with the Vulture who has kidnapped some civilians for you to rescue. I had a lot of fun with this hostage section because it's a bit more difficult than the other ones, and it improves the way you approach a situation, making you feel like you're the stealthiest boy in the world. No, but for real, it's always so much fun to do these because it tests your skill and your patience. Once you rescue everyone, Noir swings over to the Vulture who is waiting for him on a nearby rooftop. However, he quickly vanishes, leaving his thugs to deal with Noir. After beating up the thugs, Noir follows the Vulture into the building when all of a sudden a flashlight blinds him. He wakes up surrounded by fire and sees the Vulture committing arson on the building. However, you are not alone. There are some civilians you need to rescue. This section is frustrating a little because it's not clear where you need to go sometimes, and it's a bit hard to see with all the fire. After rescuing the hostages and escaping the building himself, Noir finds the Vulture and kicks him through a window into a warehouse filled with thugs. The Vulture then runs away, telling the thugs to take care of Noir. This leads into the final stealth section of the level. Once all the thugs are dealt with, Noir walks through the hallway as he hears the Vulture talk about how, with the power of the tablet fragment, he's scared of nobody, not even Osborn. After opening the doors to the next room, the Vulture jump scares you, all powered up by the tablet fragment, leading to the final encounter. It starts with another first-person boxing section where you dodge the Vulture's bites. After that, it's a repeat of the first fight, except the Vulture can now teleport and throw Molotov cocktails that he used to burn down the building from earlier. Once enough damage is dealt, Noir will knock the Vulture out, securing the piece of the tablet and declaring that Osborn is next. I thoroughly enjoyed this one. You follow Vulture through this gritty city, and I really enjoy that we see the city and how older it looks in these back alleys, rundown buildings, and old cityscapes. The atmosphere in the Noir levels so far has been fantastic. fantastic at capturing atmosphere. I think every game needs atmosphere for it to work well, and I think this game has achieved that and done it well because they've had to distinguish it in each different universe, and they all feel unique and have their own quirks I like about them. Vulture being Uncle Ben's killer was so cool because we already have a connection to Vulture right at the start, and you can feel Noir's anger towards him. There's sections where you have to fight enemies without using stealth, and it makes you feel how vulnerable Noir actually is. The punches he takes feel powerful, but you also feel like you're much more skilled once you start beating up your opponents. Noir has this brawler type of combat, which again fits the world and also makes it feel like Noir is a professional at this. He knows how to put up a fight. These were some of my favorite sections because you had to fight good and have to have skill beating these enemies. It's not like the last level where you throw a million punches and they wouldn't go down. This one feels like you have the upper hand even though you're outnumbered, and when you take out the enemies you feel a sense of, wow, I'm pretty badass. I used my combos in a great way, and I had a lot of fun beating these enemies up because they do a lot of damage, and there's quite a bit of them. Hostage sections were a bit more challenging, which makes it a lot more fun for me because I like challenges, and it felt fair whenever they found you because you can usually tell what you did wrong in each scenario. The little section where you had to crawl and hide from the lights was a nice addition and was a lot of fun. Vulture's fight was fun with you having to get him into the lights and take his ass down. Great level, honestly, and my favorite one so far. Let's get into the next one.
I'm the Amazing Spider-Man of the 4 in the game, and so I have the lion's share of all of the dialogue.
Let's get a good look at that gorgeous mug. Don't be so bashful.
Which is fun, because he's the more sarcastic of them.
I'm Dan Gilvezan, performing the role of Spider-Man 2099. I was thrilled to hear that they were going to use some of the older voices because these are the voices that the fans really know and appreciate.
Alley-oop! I think we recorded 25 different variations for when something happens. So when Spider-Man beats a boss, he can say, and that's that. Or he can say,
who's having a good time? Raise your hand.
So I think the more you play it, the different stuff will happen. You can follow exactly what it is you're supposed to do, or you can kind of diverge from it and kind of explore different areas within a game.
My name is Josh Keaton, and I play Ultimate Spider-Man. I think the thing that I relate to most about Peter Parker is the fact that he leads a double life, because when I was in high school, I was a total dork, but on the other side, I had a whole different group of friends.
Wow, that's not too big or anything. Can somebody say overcompensating?
He's kind of the trash talker of the Marvel heroes.
Look what I can do! I make it look easy.
I think that that's going to be something people look for. People want to have that attitude.
I'm Christopher Daniel Barnes, and I'm playing Spider-Man Noir. It's a blast. It's a lot of fun. It's creative, and to see that there's really sort of an overwhelmingly positive response to what you've done, that's just a great feeling. For people that like stealth and shadows and more strategic thinking, I think that they're going to really like Noir.
One of the great things about this is it takes 4 separate worlds and puts them together into one game. And what more can you ask for, really?
Naturally, I think the 2099 and the actor behind that voice is probably the finest of all. But, you know, some of the other guys, they're a little sensitive, you know, oh, I think I'm better than you are, you're better than I am. I'm the best, really.
Scorpion. The level opens with a sweeping view of the city skyline. Over a police radio, officers discuss a tablet fragment that Alchemax has located. The camera pans to a team of officers on hoverbikes going to the retrieval site. However, their mission is interrupted as Scorpion descends from a nearby building, launching a surprise attack. The scene shifts to Spider-Man 2099 as he leaps onto a building trying to stop Scorpion. However, Scorpion strikes him with a tail swipe, grabbing the fragment, and makes a swift retreat. Gameplay begins with a security alert. Officers pin the blame on 2099. After a fight with the officers and breaking in the facility, 2099 discovers Scorpion on a rampage. Laying acid-filled eggs, more officers engage 2099, who after defeating them, realizes he's trapped. The facility is on lockdown, and the doors are sealed. He cleverly uses the acid from the eggs to melt a path forward, entering the next room. 2099 finds a pair of scientists under attack from newly hatched baby scorpions. He rescues them, and they help him open the door to the next section, where 2099 finally confronts Scorpion. Scorpion reveals his motive. A smart woman promised to cure his condition if he brought her the fragment. 2099 attempts to question him further, but Scorpion is uncooperative, initiating the first boss fight. This battle requires 2099 to swing between 3 platforms, pursuing Scorpion while dodging his acidic projectiles. At certain points, Scorpion will cling to a wall, spewing acid eggs onto the ground. 2099 must tragically use these eggs to knock Scorpion off the wall. Once sufficient damage is dealt, 2099 moves in for a finishing blow, but Scorpion catches him with his tail and flings him into a room guarded by 2 officers. After defeating the guards, the door to the next room is blasted open by acid. 2099 sees more Scorpion babies torturing civilians. This section of gameplay focuses on rescuing civilians before the baby scorpions inflict too much harm. Once the civilians are safe, Scorpion reappears, causing the building to collapse. 2099 swings after him, leading him into a gauntlet filled with baby scorpions and more officers. He reaches an elevator and ascends to the top floor, which is swarming with officers who want to arrest him. Mid-fight, Scorpion appears out of the blue, declaring enough is enough. He destroys 2 patrolling hover police cars, sending them crashing through the glass floor below. This triggers another dive section where 2099 must plummet while avoiding falling debris. He lands directly in Scorpion's hideout, finally getting the answers he was looking for. The woman who promised to fix Scorpion's condition has shiny metal arms, but before 2099 can get any more information, Scorpion lunges, initiating the final encounter. This fight is similar to the first, with the added challenge of baby scorpions trying to distract 2099 from the main target. The battle concludes when the police car previously lodged in the ceiling finally crashes down, trapping Scorpion. 2099 receives the tablet fragment, showing remorse for Scorpion. He says that if he knew how to cure him, he would have, but admits that this situation is bigger than both of them. Madam Web congratulates him on a job well done, but 2099 asks her, then why don't I feel like it? This was a fine level. I had a lot of fun with it. I just kind of noticed like 2099 levels are just ADHD levels because it just feels like so much is happening on screen. Scorpion was the weakest part of the level with him not being too interesting or a fun villain. I did like the boss fights with him. They were simple, do the same thing over and over and over again, but it was a lot of fun, especially with the added challenge at the end with the baby scorpions while you're dealing with Scorpion. It was very difficult. I just found that you should just keep moving away from them since the area is so big, and that helped tremendously because they were super annoying, but not to an extent where it was like, I'm hating it. I found them to be annoying but doable because you can take them out if you want. Not much really happens in the level, and the location wasn't too great. It truly just felt like a big building that you're in. It's insanely bland, probably the most bland level we've had so far. This level introduces the shield enemies, and I hate these guys. They are the least fun to go against. These guys can block your attacks, and the only way to defeat them is if you use another enemy to defeat them, or if you go behind them, which is what you'll be doing most of the time. But the thing is, the stupid web strike, which is pretty much the only way to go behind them, is so inaccurate that you'll be landing on a different enemy that you don't want to land on, and it's insanely frustrating. You can take them out by using your slow-mo ability and going behind them, which I found to be the better way of doing it, but I hated them so much. If there was more variety on taking them out, I wouldn't have minded it so much, but you just have to keep using the same move over and over again to get past that damn shield. Don't have much to say here. Let's move on. Deadpool. We open with narration by Deadpool, who's talking about his show Pain Factor, as Spider-Man is watching it on TV. Spider-Man is wondering how they gave this guy a TV show. Deadpool says he is a very special guest for this one, and Spider-Man wonders who it is, but surprisingly, it's him, and he can hear what he's saying too. It's actually really funny. I'm gonna try and play a bunch of clips from this level, because this level has the funniest dialogue ever. Deadpool says he'll be a guest, because his prize will be the fragment. Deadpool, I guess, sends out a helicopter for him to his giant repurposed oil rig.
Spidey! Can I call you Spidey? Hey, thanks so much for being part of our little webisode. Cause you shoot the web. Okay, hey, can I get you anything before we start? Soda, bottled water?
How about the fragment?
Okay, good one. Okay, here we go. Picture up in 3, 2, and welcome to Pain Factor! Is there a mute button for him?
The level begins with Deadpool introducing Spidey to the audience and a mandatory walk section. After destroying the first of many cameras, Deadpool will say,
Hey, that was a live feed you just killed. Now what am I gonna tell its folks?
Tell them it was a mercy killing. If they've seen your show, they'll understand.
Deadpool will appear on a monitor, telling Ultimate it's not okay to break his cameras. To prevent that from happening again, Deadpool unleashes his devoted fanbase onto you as you destroy all of his cameras. After you destroy all the cameras, Deadpool reveals he has backups, leading to another set of cameras you must destroy, all with their own security measures. One is flying in the air, another pops in and out of the ground if you get too close to it, another one is guarded by a muscular fan, who Deadpool calls a prize, and the last one shoots out fire if Ultimate gets too close. There's this dialogue when you come into this room, and it's my favorite dialogue in this level because you have to have some knowledge of the Ultimate Universe to get this joke, and it's absolutely hilarious.
Welcome to the Wayne Wilson Show. Today's guest, Spider-Man. Hey, buddy, have a seat. Let's talk about the question on everyone's lips. How hot is Kitty Pryde? Almost as hot as that redhead I always see you say. Do I sense a bit of a love triangle there?
Oh my God, getting out of here.
And is it true there's a clone of you out there with your brain, but trapped inside a girl's body? Because that's kind of like creepy. And by kind of, I mean insane. Might still hit it though.
Obviously, this refers to him dating Kitty Pryde in the Ultimate continuity, and then his female clone, which I think is a great reference because that's a very deep cut in the Ultimate Spider-Man comics, but I appreciate that so much because as a fan, that joke had me laughing. The only thing is Deadpool acts nothing like his Ultimate Spider-Man counterpart. The only thing that seems to be similar is that he has his own TV show, and I'll actually get into that in 1 minute. He also has the same design, but he acts nothing like that version and is more in line with his main 616 counterpart, which was a great change because that Deadpool sucks. I'll read a couple lines from the Ultimate Spider-Man comics just to show you why I don't like him. The other way to look at it is, you're sickening, unholy genetic freaks who have no business being alive in the first place. Plus, you animals are international mutant terrorists. We're doing the world a favor by putting you down, and we're going to entertain millions of people while we do it. By the way, the guys here call me Deadpool, and you're about to find out why. They're animals, and that's what you do with animals. You hunt them for sport. Plus, doing it on TV like this tells the other mutants the truth, that they can dress like us, they can walk around among us, but they are not us. They are not human. This is why I don't like them, because that just doesn't capture Deadpool right at all. Deadpool isn't a mutant in the Ultimate Universe, and he just hates mutants, so he wouldn't be asking how hot Kitty Pryde is, because again, he hates mutants. They also give us the reason why he has his own television show. It's to show that mutants don't belong, and again, that really fails to capture Deadpool's character entirely, and it's a complete butcher to his character. I'm glad he was killed off by our main comics Deadpool, because screw this guy. They did him justice in this game for sure. He's hosting this television show to mess around. He's not taking anything seriously, he's just having fun. After destroying all the cameras, Deadpool appears on the monitors telling Ultimate he ruined his show before sneaking up behind him and knocking him out, leading into the first boss fight. It involves you trying to hit Deadpool as he teleports around you like a madman while trying to keep his adoring fans off you. Once enough damage is dealt, Deadpool runs away jumping into a boat that Ultimate catches a ride on using his webs, leading to the next rig.
Oh, I just remembered I have to, floss. Don't run away like a sniveling coward just because I was whipping your hiney. I'm not running away. I'm just gonna go find the dictionary so I can look up...
Come on already. Don't try that.
Hiney. That's my ride. You gotta bail. Ah!
You can see him from 4 different angles, and you can play him as 4 different characters. He's the original Spider-Man, Spider-Man Noir from years ago. You have the Spider-Man of the future, 99, who glides down from those huge buildings.
I guess that's my cue.
And you have the Ultimate Spider-Man as a younger Spider-Man, as a teenager. So I think it's a great idea because it gives the game player 4 different characters to be involved in, to choose which one he or she wants to be, how to play it. Obviously, they couldn't have the game without me because I narrate the game. Narrating a game is not work. That was fun. I should have paid them. Come to think of it, I don't think I did get paid, but that doesn't matter. It was fun.
The first section of the rig involves you climbing up a wall while avoiding the steam that comes out of the vents. After climbing up, Ultimate eavesdrops on a conversation of a bunch of fans talking about how they got their Deadpool suits and how it's better to get them in person because they tailor them for you, which is hilarious. I love how much personality they gave the thugs on this level. I wish they gave the thugs on other levels some more personality. I think that would have really added to the experience. The next section involves you destroying more cameras and 2 sets of backups. Once all the cameras are destroyed, Deadpool congratulates Ultimate on surviving this long and tells him to follow him to collect his prize. Of course, this is a trap with Deadpool locking Ultimate in a room, leaving his fans to deal with him during a commercial break.
Did you seriously just try to lock me in a room? What am I, grounded?
Just sit tight, my little mouth breather. We gotta pause for another break from our sponsor.
After the commercial break, Deadpool lets Ultimate go free but warns him that tidal waves are incoming due to a crazy person detonating explosives. The next section involves reaching the high ground before the tidal wave Deadpool created reaches you, the last of which is too tall for the platform. This causes Ultimate to have to use a boat caught in the wave to get to higher ground. I just love how this section is designed because it's so creative and it can actually make you nervous because of how fast the water is going, so this is a good test of your ability to get around. He then swings over to where Deadpool is, which is in a giant octagon cage. Deadpool gives Ultimate the tablet fragment without putting up much of a fight, but before Ultimate can celebrate, he turns it over and sees a Made in Canada sticker on the back, which is a reference to him being Canadian. Only then does Deadpool use the real one to make 2 copies of himself, leading into the final encounter. It's essentially the same as the first encounter, but with 2 extra Deadpools instead of the fans. After doing enough damage, Ultimate knocks Deadpool out and retrieves the tablet fragment and wonders how to get home on this huge oil rig, and it cuts to the level ending. I'm assuming Madam Web just teleported him out of there, but we never know. I adored this level. This is the first time the 2 ghosts of voicing their respective characters interact, and they pull it off magnificently. This is everything I wanted out of these levels. An interesting location, a bunch of fun fights, the main boss being such a great addition to the level, and him fitting in perfectly. This level is just pure fun. I'm also a sucker for Deadpool, so that's also a reason, but there's still a lot to enjoy here, and I think it's a perfect level, but I can also see why people think this wouldn't be a perfect level because you are just going from oil rig to oil rig, but I think it's more about how they designed the oil rig which made it perfect. The oil rig is this huge area with so much freedom. There's enemies surrounding the entire oil rig. There's a ton of traps you have to look out for on it. There's these coolly designed Deadpool explosives. There's blimps out in the distance. It's a place that feels lively, especially with how Deadpool's fans are designed and with how Deadpool keeps constantly talking to you throughout the level. Even if you pause the level, Deadpool will talk to you, the player, which is hilarious.
Hey, Chris Baker here with a quick game dev memory. For Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions, I suggested to Beanox it would be funny if Deadpool actually antagonized you when you paused. Thankfully, they agreed.
You pausing on me? You pausing on me? Well, I'm the only one here. Who do you think you're pausing on? Now you're pausing just to pause. Admit it. You have a pausing problem. You're a pauseaholic. Okay, Bear walks into a bar, says, "I'll have a lime and soda." Bartender says, "Why the big pause?" Oh, look at the widow baby with the cute widow pause button. Right, go ahead and pause whenever it's convenient for you. What about me? What about my needs? You pause too much. You know what? I'm just gonna keep saying this every time you pause now. The writer has more important dialogue to write for this game.
I think they nailed Deadpool, and I can't express how great this level is. Let's move on to the next. Act 2 conclusion. Act 2 concludes with Stan Lee talking about how great the Spider-Men are doing, but he feels like things are only going to get worse. As he says that, the camera pans to Mysterio as he watches Amazing Spider-Man swing across the New York skyline. The camera then cuts back to Amazing Spider-Man, bringing Madam Web a tablet fragment in what I assume is his apartment. As Madam Web starts to congratulate Spidey, Mysterio breaks in, taking Madam Web hostage and telling Amazing Spider-Man that if he doesn't collect the rest of the fragments for him, he will hurt Madam Web. The second act I feel is a natural progression of the first act, and I think it shows more of what there is to offer from the different Spider-Men and their levels. Amazing continues to be the weakest, and I didn't really enjoy his level at all, whereas the other ones I did find enjoyment out of. Noir continues to have a great villain, added more to his character, and level design showing more of his dark New York City. 2099 was okay with it continuing to be your fast-paced action where you feel like you're constantly on the move, which I think they even bring that massively to his next game, Edge of Time, but we'll get to that when we get to that. Ultimate continues to have fun with its big sets and tends to bring the most fun on the table in terms of gameplay and aesthetic. One thing I am noticing is a lack of personality to some of these bosses. Not all of them. Scorpion and Sandman come to mind. Also, some of the reasons why they're there make no sense, but honestly, it doesn't matter too much to me. I like how in character each Spider-Man is. They all do feel different in a way that you can see, and it's not just a copy paste of each of them, even though the combat is similar. I mean, personality wise, style wise, and tone wise, I think they are all nailing it in their own way, which I can appreciate. I like that each world feels like they aren't scared to try something new and go big with its premise too. I feel like this game was something that was going to be a hard sell at the time, because first, there's no open world like there usually is. Second, people don't know about Noir in 2099 wasn't as popular. Also, I'm not sure about Ultimate Spider-Man, but since there was a game, then I'm going to assume he was at least somewhat popular. Plus, he was on quite a bit of things in the early/late 2000s, so I think this must have been a hard sell, but I think passion over-trumped that, because just look how stunning this game is. It looks great to this day. Look how much thought is being put into this. Look at how much fun they're having with the concept. I don't think this would be something that would be made today because it's a risk to make something that's not open world for Spider-Man unless he's tied to the Avengers or in a fighting game or just in general tied with other heroes. That's all I have to say about this act. I'm heavily enjoying this. There's some spots here where you guys can obviously tell I'm getting a bit frustrated with certain things, but it's been a lot of fun, so let's keep going.
Now, both these roles are very different for both of them. So it's been a while since they played Spider-Man, so I want to talk to you guys about that. So what did you think about when you were approached? Were you up to it?
I could say that I definitely was. Spider-Man has been my favorite comic book since I started reading comic books. And it was always Spider-Man and Wolverine, because I'm short. I like to see short guys kicking ass. Yeah, I mean, so I didn't have to think twice, and especially when I heard that they were going to be bringing back Spider-Man from all different previous incarnations and cartoons, I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever heard of, and I know this guy. We've been friends for a while now. We have the same voiceover agent, so I see him all the time, and it's just kind of surreal to be sitting with another Spider-Man and talking about Spider-Man stuff. Yeah, I didn't even have to think twice. This was something that I jumped at.
Well, my first question when my agent called was, how much would you pay me? I was thrilled. It's been 30 years since, Josh has been a little bit more recent, but it's been 30 years since I did Amazing Friends. And I haven't seen Stan in 30 years. That was actually, if I'm not wrong, that was Marvel's first production as before they had licensed out the characters, and this was the first time that they had actually taken it on themselves.
Thanks to you, it put us on the map.
So when they told me they were using 4 of the actors who had voiced him before, I was absolutely thrilled because I've been studying the part now for the last 30 years, and I think I've got a handle on it. So yeah, it was great fun, and as you can see, the game really kicks ass. I mean, the stuff that I've seen that you guys haven't seen yet is really amazing. So it's been great.
Juggernaut. Amazing swings to a construction yard to grab the next tablet fragment, which he sees as soon as he arrives. However, he's unable to grab it as he's interrupted by the Juggernaut, who's being chased by Silver Sable. She's tracking him to try and collect the bounty. Amazing tries to use this as a distraction to grab the fragment and get away, but he realizes Juggernaut picked it up. So he removes Silver Sable's tracking device with a web, throwing it in the opposite direction. This leads to a fight against the Juggernaut. To begin gameplay, you must dodge the Juggernaut, who charges and throws debris at you, wait for him to slam into the ground, giving you a chance to strike. Once enough damage is dealt, Spider-Man will go for the finishing blow, but before it lands, the Juggernaut picks Spider-Man up and throws him across the construction yard. Amazing bumps into Silver Sable, who ends up adding him as a secondary target. This leads to a fight against her men. After defeating all her men and their reinforcements, she goes back after Juggernaut, saying she'll take care of Spider-Man later. Amazing then sees the Juggernaut run through a wall and over Sable's men. He also takes down a helicopter. This leads to the reinforcements she sent after the Juggernaut switching their target to Spider-Man, leading to another fight. After defeating the enemies, Amazing realizes he's stuck, but luckily the Juggernaut throws a helicopter, creating an opening. However, Silver Sable blocks your path, requiring you to defeat her men, so she has to fall back. Once the path is clear, you fight more of Sable's men until you catch up to the Juggernaut. When Amazing finally catches up, he pursues the Juggernaut through a pipe that leads to what looks like a dead end. Silver Sable finally thinks she has the Juggernaut cornered before the Juggernaut leaps through the building, blocking his way like it's nothing. This causes Silver Sable to have to chase while Amazing sneaks onto the bottom of her helicopter to continue his pursuit. This leads to a cutscene as you watch the Juggernaut destroy everything in his way before Amazing eventually gets caught on the bottom of the helicopter, making him get off and requiring him to save the construction workers who were in the crossfire to help fix the Juggernaut's mess. After the construction workers help Amazing clean up the Juggernaut's mess, Amazing finds Juggernaut and Silver Sable in a standoff on top of the Oscorp building, which is under construction. The next section involves you avoiding fire from Silver Sable's helicopters as you climb the building to fight the Juggernaut. Once you reach the top, the final fight begins. It starts with a first-person boxing section, which leads into a cutscene where Amazing zips to a girder to get some distance from Juggernaut, but Juggernaut jumps on top of it, leading them both to fall through the building, which causes the building to collapse. Silver Sable lands her copter and apparently moves in, but she doesn't appear for the rest of the stage. Once they hit the bottom, Amazing tries to grab the fragment from the rubble before the Juggernaut realizes he has it. However, he is too slow, leading to the second phase of the fight. It's pretty similar to the first at the start of the level, except now when he jumps, he creates a shockwave. After delivering the final blow, Amazing secures the tablet fragment, with Madam Web saying there's still much work to be done. For the final Amazing level, it's alright. I don't think it's too special. I like that they use Juggernaut because this feels like a comic book, which is appropriate for this world we're in. Silver Sable is just chasing Juggernaut throughout New York to get his bounty. I mean, that seems like something that would come straight out of the comics. I don't know if Silver Sable has changed in the comics from this point because I don't know much about Silver Sable, but she seems to be out of character from the way that I know her. All she seems to care about is the bounty. Spider-Man seems to be an enemy too, he's not just getting in the way. This would be a situation where I could see their goals aligning and them coming together to defeat Juggernaut, but that doesn't happen. The level itself isn't too interesting, it's just a construction site with a ton of enemies. There was one part I really liked with us having to save the workers from a ton of enemies, and you get a good chance to use what you've learned to take them out, but I also do feel like they eat damage, which is something I hate, and I don't feel like it's a problem with the other levels that aren't amazing. Now that I think about it, this was just meh, but I do like that it felt most like a comic book. The Juggernaut and Spidey have also tangled a couple times in the past in the comics, so again, this one works well for that aspect. So let's move on to the next one. Goblin. The level begins by panning over a carnival as Noir narrates about it and Osborn. The camera then cuts to a thug warning Osborn about Noir and how he defeated Hammerhead and Vulture. Osborn says he wants Spider-Man to come before showing his tablet fragment, which he uses to transform into the Goblin. The camera then cuts back to Noir, saying he's going to end Osborn's criminal empire tonight, leading into the start of gameplay. Gameplay begins with Goblin talking to Noir, asking him if he knows where he is, and we learn that this is the carnival where he once starred in the Freak Show, so he thought it'd be the perfect place for him to take his revenge. However, to do that, he had to relocate the workers, taking them hostage and requiring Noir to rescue them from the Goblin's men. After rescuing all the hostages, Goblin will cut out the lights of the carnival, challenging Noir to come and get him. After reaching a creepy clown head in the center of the carnival, the Goblin will come bursting out, leading to another first-person boxing section, which ends with Noir trying to go for the finishing blow, but the Goblin overpowers Noir, allowing him to get away. Okay, before I keep going, I need to mention how stupid this Goblin looks. Like, look at him. He is the Osborn Fane. Like, that's so dumb. I love it. Because look how silly this is. It reminds me of that one panel where Harry is dead and you see his bones, but the Osborn Fade is so strong that it lives on. Noir walks into this creepy tent when the power suddenly cuts off. When it cuts back on, it's full of thugs for Noir to defeat. Once defeated, the lights will go out again, and you will hear the Goblin taunt Noir before he jump scares him, leading to another first-person boxing section that ends with another failed attempt to finish the job. This leads to the Goblin getting away again. He flees into a funhouse, but before Noir can get pursued, he has to rescue some more hostages. This section is very similar to the one at the start of the level, except this time you have to shut down the power lines by saving the corresponding workers to use them as zip lines to save the next worker. After that, Noir goes into the funhouse to find a room with a bunch of clowns on the wall. He has to choose the correct clown to proceed before the poison gas filling the room kills him. He then slams through the clown's head to find a hallway that's upside down. He walks through it, avoiding the poison gas that sprays out of the walls. Noir reaches the end of the hallway to find an upside down room before getting hit with poison gas and the room filling up with thugs. This leads to a fight where you have to knock out all the thugs before the gas kills you, while Noir is dizzy, causing the screen to shake. After defeating the thugs, the Goblin will order a spotlight to be put on Noir as guns come out of the wall. You must crawl up the wall to the next room, avoiding the spotlight. This leads to another upside down hallway. Noir finds another room where he must break the right clown face again to proceed. After choosing the correct one, Noir comes face to face with Osborn, leading to another first-person boxing section. After another failed attempt at finishing the job, Noir is thrown out of the funhouse. Outside, he sees the Goblin on top of a Ferris wheel, who throws it directly in the path of a civilian trapped in his car. After Noir rescues the civilian and swings through the Ferris wheel, he catches up to Goblin for the final encounter in another tent. The boss fight is pretty simple. Just try to get behind Goblin to hit the weak point on his back until the lights cut out, then go for a stealth takedown. Rinse and repeat until enough damage is dealt. Then Noir will launch himself out of a cannon, delivering the final blow and securing the tablet fragment. Overall, I believe the Noir dimension is at its best here. It takes advantage of the time period with the 40s carnival theme, the stealth gameplay is really pushed to its max potential, and the Goblin is the best antagonist for Noir so far. I heavily enjoyed the environment for this one, and I think they do a good job with it, especially for the time period it's in. I like that it seems like we are now using all of our stealth tricks as Noir, and we have to have some sort of mastery of them because you're put into these specific scenarios in which it feels like you have to. I think this is the hardest the stealth gameplay got, and they did an excellent job with how tough it was because I had such a fun time trying to take everyone out. Goblin was great, not too much to actually say about him other than he looks like an absolute fucking goofball. One thing I find interesting is that this is the first time Norman becomes the Goblin in this universe, which is because of the fragment. He's always been Norman, but I think he's called the Goblin anyway, because that's what Spider-Man calls him before seeing him, so that must be his crime boss name. We never actually see what Norman looks like, we only see the Goblin, with him being silhouetted as Norman when we see him, but we do see him in the Noir comics as he looks like a typical Norman Osborn. Editor Crispy coming back in here, he actually has like a reptile skin disorder, and I didn't know that because I haven't read his comics, but the Norman Osborn thing is his mask. It's not actually his real face, So that's interesting. I think it's definitely changed for this game. Maybe, I'm not sure. All right, back to current Crispy. I had a ton of fun with the boss fight at the end where we beat him up. He does his repeated attack, which some are hard to dodge. Then we have to take him down in the shadows. Then it repeats for 2 more times. But in the next stage of the boss, he uses this thing to attack you, making it harder to dodge. Then when you beat him in that stage, he sends out goons this time and you can use the thing he swings around to take them out, since you're so weak yourself. I think anyone would have enjoyability with this one because it adds a lot to the experience with Noir. Let's move on to the next one.
And I think that's one of the reasons that they asked me to come back for other Spider-Man. I think the first one was Spider-Man Noir in Shattered Dimensions. And when they approached me, I said, well, gee, and I said, I'm 20 years older now. I'm not the same Spider-Man. I go, but I'm flattered, but does that make sense? Is it true to the character? Is it going to sound pretentious or fake? Or, I was really not quite sure about that. But then they explained to me, well, no, Spider-Man Noir is a very different type of Spider-Man. It's a different universe. He's older, he's darker. And I said, so he's me.
No, you were pretty dark. You were pretty dark when you were young, Chris.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's gotten worse, John. So I thought, well, that's interesting. I can do that. And then when I read the character and looked at the context of the character, I really appreciated it. I really gravitated towards that character. And again, people really responded to it. Again, because I was bringing a sort of a new, it was a new take to a new interpretation on the myth and an expansion of the myth, which just so happened to correlate with my nature and the performance that I could bring to the character. And I loved it. And people seemed to enjoy it. And it was fantastic. And then it sort of snowballed from there to in Ultimate Spider-Man, the latest series with Drake Bell. I started playing villains. I started playing Electro in that. I played this wonderful character called the Wolf Spider, which is, again, we're doing more multidimensional stuff, which is really interesting, which, of course, John pioneered. And Spider Knight on USM. So, and I was doing that thinking, gee, this brings back memories of me having to play multiple Spider characters from the series that John had invented. And here they are 20 years later, basically doing the same thing. And I thought, well, that's interesting. And yet now I'm playing villains and other characters. So it was the old saying, die the hero or live long enough to become the villain. And so it was a thrill to have lived long enough to become the villain.
There's nothing more everyman than meeting your multi-dimensional self.
Very true. But it was really interesting doing Noir in particular because, as I like to say, there's this wonderful quote from Jung where he says, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. And I think, yeah, isn't that powerful? And I think that's really behind Noir. That's behind the symbiote. That's behind Venom. That's what all that stuff is. And so there's this new sort of, expansive aspect of the character, which has been around for a little while, but it's taking on new life. And anyway, it's very interesting to me. So I'm thrilled to be a part of it, of course, as always.
And so they reached out to you to play Noir primarily. That was their first inclination for you?
Yeah, I believe that was the first in Shattered Dimensions. And then Edge of Time, they continued on with 2099. And that was the next one that I did.
Well, I'm curious, what do you think are the differences between recording for a television show and recording for a game? I mean, obviously a game, you're going to have to fill in a lot of different iterations for all the different choices that the player has, but does that make the recording aspect of it any different for you?
It does, actually. It's interesting because when you're doing a show like Spider-Man, you are telling a story. You are performing a piece of art for the audience. But when you're doing a game, it's a bit of interactive art. And that's a very subtle distinction because every line is in response to something that the player does. And I'm a gamer. I love games. And it's really annoying when there's bad voiceover work because it kills the suspension of disbelief. So one thing I always think about when I'm doing a video game is that I'm not just telling a story. I'm interacting in a storytelling experience with the player. And so when I say when I'm doing a lot of lines, I'm talking to the player. And that's a very subtle distinction, but it's very interesting. I've always made sure that I find out, well, what exactly is happening in this moment? What is the player done that's made the character react this way? What has some other character done? What's actually happening on the screen? Again, I'm a very visual guy when it comes to the voiceover thing. So I like to know what is happening in gameplay so that there's not a juxtaposition. Because if you're a gamer, you can't stand that awful juxtaposition where the voice doesn't match the action. And there seems to be a disconnect between what you're doing and what the voice is saying. So I always have tried to have a flow so that we're in it together. That's always sort of my mentality when it comes to video games is that we're in it together because I love games and I know I want to be in it with you. So it's fun so that we're all in it together and it's this co-created experience. But again, maybe I'm sort of reading into it, but that's sort of the way I approach it and it makes it of value to me. So.
Well, what's it like playing the game and then continuing to have a conversation with yourself? Do you play these games after you complete them?
Do you know what? I've never played a game that I've done as myself. Like I've never, and I know that sounds odd, but I do that intentionally. I don't want to have me responding to me. It's not, you know what I mean? I don't want that. It sounds silly, but I don't want that to corrupt the process. I want to feel somebody else playing the character and then me interacting with them as that avatar of that character. I don't want to bring me into it. If that makes sense.
Dr. Octopus. This level starts with 2099 climbing up the side of a building that turns out to be a high-security Alchemax building. Apparently this was where Scorpion was supposed to bring the tablet fragment. As 2099 passes by the security systems, he stops at a vent to spy on Dr. Octopus, who is doing research on the fragment pieces. She states that, as she suspected, the tablet fragments are quite powerful and require proactive measures to prevent them from falling into the wrong hands of rivals. What are we, some kinda Marvel rivals? As she says this, she turns around, grabbing 2099 with one of her metal arms as he was going for a sneak attack. She then introduces herself as Serena Patel, the head of Alchemex's Shadow Division. 2099 asks her what's her master plan, but instead of giving him an answer, she says she'd rather just kill him, starting a self-destruct sequence and escaping through a hatch. 2099 webs up the hatch, preventing it from closing so he can escape and pursue her. This causes gameplay to begin with a dive sequence where you must continuously dive at top speed to keep away from the explosion as you dodge purple beams that come out of the walls. 2099 ends up having to use webbing to break his fall as he falls into a room with a giant device in the middle. Dr. Octopus then welcomes him to the Shadow Research Division, showing him her latest creation, a condensed matter reactor. After 2099 doesn't seem impressed, she then shows him a piece of the tablet, saying this might impress you, before fleeing and turning on the reactor. The reactor then blasts 2099 into a room filled with purple cables that are guarded by a force field, but before 2099 can figure out what they go to or how to shut down the force field, the room is swarmed by Dr. Octopus robots, which once defeated, open the path forward. 2099 then finds a hologram of Dr. Octopus, who is taunting him about not being able to figure out how to shut down the reactor. During their conversation, 2099 spots an energy core that he ends up pulling out of its socket. This apparently shuts down one of the 4 machines powering the reactor, along with the purple force field guarding the cables. 2099 then encounters Dr. Octopus, who is controlling a giant metal arm, leading to our first boss fight. You must trick Doc Ock into stabbing these electrical panels on the floor that short-circuit the arm, leaving her vulnerable to attack. After defeating her, the force field she puts to block your way goes down, leading you into a room that suddenly goes into lockdown and fills with more Dr. Octopus robots. After defeating them, the door will open to a giant hallway that 2099 must swing across. Once on the other side, a hologram of Dr. Octopus will appear. She tells 2099 that he's not the first to try to stop her, and that a couple of her employees tried to prevent her from conducting her research. You then hear a scientist cry out for help as she is trapped behind a wall of glass. Before you can rescue her, however, Dr. Octopus will lock you in the room with the force field and call a group called Public Eye to pursue you. These are just the regular officer enemies from previous stages. After defeating them, 2099 frees the scientist, asking for help to shut down the force field. As she shuts down the force field, she tells 2099 that Serena wasn't always like this, but when she got her hands on the fragment, she went crazy. After swinging over another gap and dealing with more officers trying to arrest him, 2099 shuts down another one of the reactor's power supplies. After shutting it down, a hologram of Dr. Octopus then appears, calling 2099 a fool as she sets off an explosion. You must then run away from the explosion and also get the scientists that helped you earlier to safety. Once you and the scientists successfully outrun the explosion, 2099 will hear Dr. Octopus voice over what I assume to be an intercom, saying that she's impressed with how far he's gotten, but this is as far as he will go. 2099 will then go to destroy the other 2 energy cores, which you can do in any order. The first one I did involved you rescuing 3 scientists as officers attack you to shut down a force field. After completing it, a hologram of Doc Ock appears, telling 2099 to stop before she has to crush him. The other ones involve you fighting another giant mechanical arm to get into the energy core room. Then once inside, you must protect a scientist from Alchemax officers as he tries to shut down a force field around the energy core. Once all the energy cores are shut down, Spider-Man swings back to the room where the reactor is, where he comes face to face with Doc Ock. Doc Ock says she doesn't need those energy cores anymore, as the reactor can just be powered by the fragment. 2099 does not seem to be impressed by this news, causing the Doc to declare she will kill him, leading to the final encounter, which is split into 3 phases. The first phase involves you shutting down a force field that Dr. Octopus is using to protect herself, while different parts of the floor light up, shocking you. The second phase involves you running away from Doc Ock until her force field runs out of energy, leaving her open to attack. The final phase adds her robots, which you must defeat as they drop bombs you have to throw at her to do damage. After defeating Doc Ock, 2099 secures the tablet fragment, ending the stage. There's a lot of things I like about this level, but there's also things I really dislike. I like how well designed everything is, and I like Dr. Octopus's design, especially with her glowing futuristic looking tentacles. She's also original to this game. I'm sure the Into the Spider-Verse movie was inspired by this version, and I really dig this version. The level design really fits this world, and these reactors we have to take out all lead to her big machine, and it's just very nice to look at. The enemies are also super high-tech robots, which look awesome. The officers, I think, also look pretty cool. One big thing for me was the robot guys, specifically the bulkier ones, took way too much damage, and I don't find it fun when I can spend 1 minute punching them just for them not to go down. I don't think it's fun. You can even use combos, but sometimes the combos don't even feel like they matter too much, which is weird for a beat 'em up game. I like that it felt like there was a lot to do in this one. Not to say there wasn't a lot to do in the other ones, because there's plenty of things to do, but I always felt like what I was doing mattered. Every time I'd go into one of the reactors, we would save a scientist or have to take Doc Ock down that was in our path, or we'd have to help out a scientist to keep going. All these things just made it feel fresh because it feels like a lot to do, but you do it when you get there, and I enjoyed that a lot. The boss fight with Doc Ock was way too easy in my opinion. It was still fun, don't get me wrong, but I just wish he would do more considering she's the last boss for 2099. I feel like I had a harder time with Scorpion, but I feel like I could take her out with ease. But besides those couple things, I think this was a great level and a nice send off for the 2099 levels. Let's get into the next level. Carnage. The level begins with Ultimate Spider-Man swinging into a shield base called the Triskelion to see if he could get help from S.H.I.E.L.D., but it's not what he expected. Everything is on fire, the workers are drained of life, and there's red goop everywhere. Ultimate says he's seen stuff like this before and knows it can only be caused by one thing. After he says that, the camera zooms down a dark hallway covered in red goop as Carnage comes busting through a wall. Gameplay begins with a walking section. You walk down a hallway watching Carnage jump around outside the windows. Ultimate walks into a room filled with what he believes are a bunch of dead S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. However, before he can warn them, they spring back to life attacking him. He continues to fight the Carnage zombies and explores the base until he comes across a worker being surrounded by zombies. After rescuing her, Ultimate asks what's going on. It's revealed here that S.H.I.E.L.D. has been testing the fragment and studying Carnage, and when the two were in close proximity, something interesting was happening, but they don't explain further. She explains that she locked herself in here, but the agents somehow reanimated themselves once Carnage killed them, and Ultimate explains that he's never had that kind of power before. He wants her to open the door, and she says,
"Wait, you're going in there after it? Why?"
Because great power comes with great responsibility. Something you wouldn't understand.
I think that's a good way of putting this great responsibility line in here without it feeling forced. It's also revealed here that this is how Carnage gets his name from this being his prison name, because in the Ultimate Universe, he's not really a conscious being. Like, symbiotes usually have some sort of intelligence in the main universe, but in the Ultimate Universe, they don't, especially Carnage, which was made with Peter's mutated blood, and in the Ultimate Spider-Man game, the Carnage symbiote was made from the Venom symbiote being put directly into his bloodstream for some weird reason. I like to think that the Ultimate Spider-Man from this game and the Ultimate Spider-Man from the Ultimate Spider-Man game are the same Spider-Man. I know there's no concrete evidence in this level on what I said about Carnage does negate that, but I think you could totally make some mumbo jumbo up to make it work. But even the character bios kind of side with it being connected to the comics. But come on, this is one moment that I think would be cool because they are supposed to be the same Spider-Man. I like to think of this as a trilogy of a game series instead of a duology because of this, even though Ultimate was created by Activision and this was created by Beanox, and the Spider-Verse connection kind of gets lost, but I truly enjoyed the headcanon of them being in the same universe. Imagine they had gotten Ultimate's voice actor back, but I think they would have already sounded a lot different because he was either 15 or 16 while voicing Ultimate in that game. But Josh was a fantastic choice and I wouldn't change that, but I would have loved if they gave us some more connections between games. Also, yes, the Ultimate game and the Ultimate comics are not connected, but they were originally supposed to be, which sucks because that game is so great. It's not confirmed if this game is canon to the comics either because it was never mentioned. And also that Deadpool connection falls flat, but also you could again just make up some mumbo jumbo of why he was acting different. This is a weird topic right now because I'm getting super sidetracked, but I want to say movie tie-in games ruin good games coming out, and Spider-Man is the best example of that. I'm glad we're out of that era now, but here's what I'm talking about. We were supposed to get Ultimate Spider-Man 2, but the higher-ups think a movie tie-in game would make more money because movies are more critically acclaimed than comics are. So we get the very bad Spider-Man 3 game instead of an Ultimate Spider-Man 2 game. Doesn't that just feel like they pissed in your soup a little bit? Like, it sucks because you know that game would have been fire because of the groundwork they made with the first one. Then on top of that, we were supposed to get another Spider-Verse game like Shattered Dimensions or Edge of Time, which unfortunately Edge of Time was rushed for development. which I'll talk about in my next video, but we got the pretty bad Amazing Spider-Man game right after, and it sucks because another one of those games would have been way better than the Amazing Spider-Man 1 game because it's not that good, just like the Amazing Spider-Man 2 game. Studios back then were using their dummy brain like they do now, and they say, movie equal tie-in game. Not good game, we like that. And you lose all of that freedom of making an actual good game. Ultimate Spider-Man and these two Spider-Verse games had so much creativity and looked so good. Then you get garbage looking games right after because of higher ups thinking of money, not a good game. It's sad to see that they lost that creativity back then, and that wasn't their fault. It was the higher ups' fault for not giving them the foundation for making something great because they were probably major fans giving it their best for these games because you can easily tell the amount of passion they had for making these games, and then the higher up shut that down for a generic game that's supposed to follow the movie, which funnily enough they both did a horrible job at. It sucks because real fans of gaming had much more of an appreciation for these games than they did for these. I'm sorry, I had to rant about that because we as consumers were not getting the best products, and these higher ups are completely ruining that for us. Like Insomniac Spider-Man 2 was rushed because Sony wants more money as fast as they can. These higher ups ruin a good product for us. Alright, I think I've gone off subject way too hard. Getting back to the video.
Alright, so obviously you guys are very deeply entrenched in Spider-Man, so how did that go with working with Beanox? Did they take direction? Was it collaborative in terms of putting in all the little fan nods? Or are they big comic nerds too?
Oh, they obviously went through all the stuff to pick out like the best Spider-Man characters and all the best like elements and things you can do with them. They are such fans. Look at they got all the original Spider-Man voice actors from the cartoons. This is amazing.
I'm available for that too.
You're not going to find bigger fans of like the whole spread than the guys at Beanox. They really put in the time and the work.
Now obviously this is some pretty inspired voice casting, because you know, you pretty much hit every generation of Spider-Fans with this game. So I'm just very curious, who decided to do this? And, you know, did you get any pushback on it?
Well, I think it was just like a collaborative decision, talking to Activision, you know, figuring out what was the best way. One thing that was really important right from the start when we decided to go with 4 Spider-Man is that we wanted to have 4 different voice actors voicing them. We were not totally comfortable with the idea of having just one doing 4. It wouldn't feel that much different. And to actually, you know, please the fans, I thought it was just making sense to actually have, you know, 4 great voice actors actually voice Spider-Man in the past. That was all making sense to us. And yeah, that was pretty, that was established quite early on.
Yeah, and our goal was to make the best Spider-Man game that has ever been done. So we didn't want to overlook anything, and that's part of why we did that.
When Ultimate angrily asks her to open the door, he sees Carnage draining the life out of his SHIELD agent. Luckily, a SHIELD robot comes to save the day by using a flamethrower to make Carnage run. However, because Ultimate is wearing the black suit, the robot also views him as a threat. After exploring the base some more and helping the remaining SHIELD agents take out more Carnage zombies, Ultimate finds himself in a room filled with caged symbiote creatures, who of course get released as soon as he enters. After defeating the symbiote creatures, he walks down the hall to find a person being attacked. After getting him to safety and fighting more zombies and creatures, Spider-Man finds the helicarrier crashed. When he jumps down to investigate, Carnage jumps out attacking him and beginning the first boss fight. It starts with a first-person boxing section. After that, you're trying to dodge Carnage's attacks and knock him into the blades of the helicarrier to deal extra damage. Once enough damage is dealt, Carnage will run away and Ultimate will give pursuit. During his pursuit, Ultimate will hear a helicarrier call out Mayday as it starts flying towards him. The next section involves you running away from a crashing helicarrier until you reach a warehouse where you see Carnage hitching a ride on a flying tank. Ultimate gets the same idea, catching a ride on another flying tank. As he flies, you really see the destruction that Carnage has caused. Ultimate then follows Carnage into a control tower that you have to climb while fighting more Carnage zombies and symbiote creatures. Once you reach the top, you'll find Carnage in an egg in the middle of the room with 2 robots on either side of him. However, these robots will not harm you as they are special units of robots programmed to recognize Spider-Man as an ally. This leads into the final encounter. You must defeat the robots from symbiote creatures while they do damage to the Carnage egg. Once enough damage is dealt, Carnage will pop out, leading to a first-person boxing section. After you successfully do that, it's very similar to the first fight. Once Carnage is defeated, the final tablet fragment is secured. This level is insane, but in the best possible way. It's crazy how many people die in this level, like an insane amount of people actually die. And he's using the corpses of those people, which is really dark, but I like that for Carnage. But something did feel off, and I know exactly what it is. and it's not even the game's fault. Carnage wasn't Carnage. Ultimate Carnage is terrible, honestly, and there's no personality to be seen from him. When I think of Carnage, I think of this.
Think of the damage we can do now, man! Dad! Ready for some father-son quality time? I hate having my meals interrupted. Just like sardine cans. Snack time!
But the problem, like I said, wasn't the game's fault. It's the Carnage from that universe. One thing I think makes Carnage is Cassidy, and that has always been, in my opinion, Carnage's best host. In the Ultimate Universe, he actually never even gets the Carnage symbiote because we never see Cassidy in that universe. This is literally the only thing I dislike about this level because the premise is insane and that fits Carnage so well, and I could easily see him doing this amount of destruction he caused, and I think it's a lot of fun. I also like that it was a more hand-to-hand combat because we are also wearing a symbiote, so we have to see who's stronger, which funnily enough in the Ultimate Spider-Man game you have to fight him with Venom, who is also wearing the symbiote. There's a horror vibe which you get a lot more from in the opening intro, and it works phenomenally. I had tons of fun with this level. The amount of chaos adds to that fun. You get to use the symbiote to your full potential here with a ton of enemies, and the shield slayers are actually difficult to beat and you have to be careful on how you beat them. Also, they are called the Mark II in the character bios because the Mark I appeared in Ultimate Spider-Man number 100, and they were initially used to take down Spider-Man if he ever turned, but this version was specifically made for Eddie Brock and is original to this game. I love whoever made the Ultimate levels because you can tell they were a fan of the Ultimate Spider-Man comics. That's the type of passion I love to see in something like this because they got a fan to be working on it. And it's not those types of fans where they make fan fiction, they made something absolute heat. And I'm not saying fan fiction can be bad, I'm talking about some very questionable fan fiction. A lot of Spider-Man fans do genuinely put their absolute best work into whatever they're making, and I love that. Like, there are some projects out there that I think are phenomenally done. They are just pure Spider-Man to me, and I love it. But that's it for this section. Now let's get on to my conclusions for this final section. Act 3 Conclusion. We open with Stan Lee's narration. He congratulates us on a job well done collecting all the tablet fragments, but reminds us that Madam Web is still in danger. We then cut to Amazing, who hatches a plan to sneak up on Mysterio and free Madam Web. Next, we cut to the apartment. Mysterio talks about how excited he is to finally get to use real magic as he holds the incomplete tablet in his hand. All of a sudden, a web comes flying in, knocking him out, and Amazing bursts through using his opportunity to free Madam Web. However, the journey is not over as Mysterio wakes up with the Tablet of Order and Chaos completely assembled at his feet. He then uses it to shatter reality. In a last-ditch effort, Madam Web calls the Spider-Man from the other dimensions to help Amazing stop Mysterio. This act was great. It really pulled off the heavy hitters like Green Goblin, Dr. Octopus, and Carnage. Juggernaut was a bit of a weird pick since he's not really a Spider-Man villain. Again, the only one that I thought was lacking was the Amazing level, which again sucks. Give me some good levels with Amazing in this game, and it would have been straight peak. I think their creative brains over there at Beanox were just making peak after peak after peak with these levels. They had some good cooks in the kitchen, and the whole restaurant was enjoying. My goodness, was this such a great act. I think if they got to do another one of these, I think they would have just kept delivering the goods. What I enjoy most here was the creativeness, and I think I've proudly have said that a lot with this game, but it's not just a beat 'em up. It's a game of pure passion, and that's what a game needs. It needs true passion with its developers, and I think that's why this game is silently but still talked about to this day. Let's get to the final stage of the game.
Hey guys, this is Ryan Panagos, aka Agent M. I'm at Comic-Con 2010 with Dan Gilvezan and Josh Keaton, the voices of Spider-Man.
Nanofiber.
The black suit!
We both ended up wearing Spider-Man briefs.
underwear. Swear to God,
It was not planned.
it was not planned. We're just that
Two-man
geeky.
children, yes.
You guys worked with Stan before?
I worked with Stan back in the early '80s, 30 years ago, and he's got more energy now than he had then. It's incredible.
He's got more energy than me.
Yeah,
Like, it's crazy.
Did you work with Stan?
I did. He did a cameo on Spectacular, and then there have been a couple other Marvel shows that I've worked on that I'm not really at liberty to talk about right now. He also did cameos in.
Do you have any favorite lines that you've said, whether it's in cartoons or for the video games, anything that sticks out to you guys?
I do have one actually from the old series. We did the Origin show. This was the first time that Spider-Man's origin was presented in animated form. And when he's wrestling Crusher or whatever, Crusher Hogan, yes. Exactly. When he's trying to make money as Spider-Man before he discovers that he should actually be doing this for the good of mankind, He's in the ring with Crusher, and Crusher says, he's trying to get a hold of him, and Crusher says, "They don't call me Crusher for nothing." And Spider-Man says, "No, how much do they charge?"
I would probably say my favorite line was from the Black Cat episode where I worked with the lovely Tricia Helfer. And in response to her saying, "You better not get your goop in my hair," I say, "Don't worry, it comes out with..." Wait, what did I say? I said, "Don't worry, it comes out with ice or peanut butter." I can't remember what it was.
And this is his favorite line.
Yeah, and I can't even remember it.
Mysterio. We jump straight into gameplay with a Noir section where you must avoid the light that the now giant Mysterio shines on the stage as you sneak up behind him and get the jump on him. He cracks Mysterio's helmet, which this section is basically just Batman Arkham Asylum Scarecrow sections. Mysterio then starts to fall. We then cut to Ultimate, whose section requires you to beat up these purple creatures that Mysterio creates while destroying floating orbs that summon previous villains. Once enough orbs are destroyed, Mysterio will lean in close enough for Ultimate to grab his helmet and crack it even more. As Ultimate begins to fall, we switch to 2099, which is a diving section where you must avoid the smoke and magic circles Mysterio throws at you to get close enough to dive on his helmet and crack it. After doing that 3 times, we switch to Amazing for the final section. This section involves you swinging from a set of platforms, fighting off more of these creatures from Ultimate section to reveal pieces of debris that you use to kick into Mysterio's helmet. Once enough damage is dealt, you'll get the opportunity to swing in close enough to the Mysterio that Amazing will deliver the final blow. This leads to a cutscene where Stan Lee narrates about how being a bad guy never turns out well as Mysterio shrinks back down to normal size. But before he can even get up, the 4 Spider-Men surround him, bantering back and forth as they kick his ass. We then cut to Madam Web as she tells the 4 Spider-Men that reality is rebuilding itself and they must return to their own dimensions. The Spider-Men then say goodbye to each other as all of them except Amazing vanish into thin air. Madam Web then thanks Amazing as he's about to take Mysterio back to prison, telling him that he should feel good knowing that his legacy spans across space and time. Then Amazing turns to her and says, "Those guys were all right," as the camera starts to switch between all 4 dimensions with the Spider-Men talking about each other. The game then ends as they all say they're the coolest, with them all swinging into the frame to make one Spider-Man mask out of the 4 of them, which is absolutely sick. Then we get a post-credit scene where Spider-Ham shows up saying what did he miss out on, and the game ends. The final section is that short. There is nothing much here. It's actually really bad. It's just so lackluster. There's nothing interesting about it, and the level is just a boring mess. It feels like all the creativity was used in the previous levels, with this feeling the least creative. I hated, and I mean I hated, Amazing section in this. Beat up bad guys, spam buttons till defeated. If I had more incentive to use more of my combos, then I would, but it doesn't feel like it amounts to anything because you're forced to constantly keep fighting these enemies with them not stopping. And it just gets to a point where it's like, okay, I'm just gonna spam. And I'm a person that likes to use a lot of combos, but when it's just non-stop enemies coming, it just gets boring. I did like the other Spider-Man sections, but they were just way too short. But I had a little bit of fun with them, but I personally would just rather play a full level with them than a short like 3 minutes with them. And of course, Amazing gets a full 10 to 15 minutes, and he's the most boring one gameplay-wise. What's insanely annoying about this level is if you die as Amazing, you have to start his whole entire section over. So if you got to that 13-minute mark and you died, well then buddy, screw you because you're going all the way back to the start. It was nice to see all the Spider-Man together, even if it was just in the cutscene. I would have liked if we saw them fighting with us in gameplay or something like that. I think that would have been neat. The level feels rushed creatively. Like, I don't think this was their intention of this being the final level because there's not much going on in the level and it's not entirely too pleasing to look at. While I felt like every single level in the game had nice set designs, what sucks is Mysterio becomes one of the worst villains in the game just because he's boring and his boss fight sucks, and when it's a beat 'em up and that's all you have from a villain, then you lose that charm from him. I think that's about all I have to say just because there's not much to say. This game has its problems, there's no denying it, but I think it's fun, and I think anyone would have a fun journey with this game. But don't expect this complex game with a great story. Just play the game if you're a diehard fan of the character, or you love the Spider-Verse concept, or if you like beat 'em ups, or if you just want to chill out and have a bit of fun. This game isn't trying to be something crazy big with a big open world and there being characters you particularly care about. I think you just have a fun ride visiting these 4 dimensions and beating up some bad guys and seeing how each world looks and feels. There's a very distinct personality for each one of them, and you get to appreciate them in their own unique ways. I love that about this game. There's no problem with a game just trying to be something small, but you having a good time, and I don't think we'll ever see that from a Spider-Man game ever again, just because he's very much more well known for having an open world game, unless again you count like fighting games like Rivals or arcade beat 'em ups like Marvel Cosmic Invasion. I'm usually talking about solo Spidey adventures. I give this game a 8 out of 10. I heavily enjoyed it. There's just so much here to like. The combat for the most part feels smooth. The game itself is just beautiful, especially for its time. I like the ride that we were on with all the Spider-Men. All their worlds feel good to play in, and you get to explore them and learn a bit of history about them. I love it, and that's about it for the entire game. Now we should go over each Spider-Man individually, so let's get into that now.
So, one of the other big appeals to that Shattered Dimensions game is that it brought in all the voice actors from Spider-Man's history. Do you ever keep up with any of these other Spider-Men, considering you're in a sort of exclusive club of some sorts?
It's funny. I've spoken to Josh Keaton because we worked together a little bit, but we've communicated a bit on Twitter and just sort of texted back and forth. But no, I don't really keep in touch with the other Spider-Men, the other carriers of the lineage. But it's always a thrill to see new people become a part of that club, so to speak. And it's just I encourage them to take the character as seriously as as they can, as hopefully as I tried to take it, and I guess more importantly, take it as seriously as the fans take it. Because again, I go back to this thing that if you don't dig it, if you're not feeling it, the fans can tell. And then you're disrespecting that experience. There's almost a quasi kind of religious experience about like the cosplay and participating in this sort of ritualized mythology that people get into. So if you don't take it seriously, it's offensive to people because they take it seriously, and it's a way that they're expressing these inner archetypes and this inner reality and this inner heroic nature. It's how they access that. So if you take it seriously, man, they love it because you're honoring that experience. And if you're just sort of flippant, and there have been a few people who the fans have made it very clear that they didn't like what the person was doing, I really think that's the root of it. It was just a job. We've all done that. We've all had jobs that were just jobs. Yeah, Spider-Man, not one of them. Right. and if you approach it that way, it's not going to work. So again, it's just sort of my 2 cents on it.
Amazing Spider-Man. The one we all know and love, he's a very just okay experience. Again, his combat system is the same as the other Spider-Men, but they have other traits about the other ones that this one does not, which makes him feel less special. His villains weren't that great. The art of everything is a very comic book looking style, which obviously makes sense because this is supposed to be the mainline comics version of the character, and he acts very much like our mainline comics counterpart. But of course, this game isn't canon with it not being mentioned in the mainline comics at all, even though Dan Slott is a key writer for the game and he was a key writer for the Spider-Verse story in the comics. So it's like, why not make a direct connection if you could? I think that would have been so interesting. Maybe have that as a plot point with Amazing meeting Miles and telling him he did work briefly with his world's counterpart and them having a moment. I think that would have been such an amazing moment between the two, but unfortunately comics are just not that important to these people, which I'm assuming are the higher ups, because I think Dan Slott would have added that he was the mainline comics Peter, but the higher ups were just like, nah, none of that. Which sucks. I do like how his combat looks with it being web-based. That was a cool idea. And again, they maybe could have expanded upon that concept a little bit. Amazing gets a 5 out of 10 for everything as a package because I found him boring to play, but there's still a small hint of enjoyment. I mostly used him as a way to try out new combos. That's basically it. Noir. As I've said, the stealth mechanics in this game aren't that great. There's so little variety in your movements. You can take them from above, the wall, behind them, perch points, and that's about it. I do wish we had more to do, give us some more variety in the stealth mechanics. The stealth mechanics are reminiscent of the Insomniac Spider-Man games, I'll bet without the gadgets. Noir's stealth is fine, but again, he is so weak that it balances out his lack of stealth mechanics because you have to think about each move you make. If he messed up in the Insomniac games, I never thought that I wasn't tough enough to take these guys out once I got caught. I never had to think about my moves, I just would beat up the enemies with ease. Once you get into each scenario as Noir, I'm always thinking, okay, I should take these guys out in this order, I should play it more safe in this environment, I need to move fast if I want to take these guys out, and it feels so rewarding when you do take them out the way you want to. One thing I didn't like was when they gave you more health in the character upgrades, you can take way more damage, and it feels less threatening because you can just tank on a guy. Don't get me wrong, it's still hard to take out one enemy, but if you know how to use your combos correctly, then you're set. There's no danger. Especially this combo called the 8-Legged Fury, it made some of these a breeze to go through if you got caught with a good amount of health. It just got too easy, and I like the challenge of when you got caught. You were like, okay, I gotta move out of here fast, or I'm dead immediately. I think a good challenge, which would also add to the game, is if you failed the hostage challenges when they spot you, the enemies would take out the hostages, because I just don't understand why they don't do that, because what are the point of these hostages? I thought the point of a hostage was that if you're too close, they will shoot them, which I think could have made a good challenge that I felt was needed. Noir isn't wearing his coat from the comics, and my guess is they didn't want to have to put in the extra work for one character, because you have to put the physics of the coat moving, and that's totally understandable. And honestly, I didn't mind because it made me feel more stealthier during gameplay, and I feel like the coat would have been bulkier on the model for him, so I personally did not mind the coat not being there. I think it works well in the movies and shows, but it's a bit harder to work into the games, and that's not saying it can't work, but since Noir is more of a stealthy character, I just think it worked better. Noir's environment, I think, was a treat. I had so much fun seeing what place we'd end up next, and then showing how this gritty environment is affecting the whole atmosphere that you're given. It felt right to be here. It was engaging and I had a lot of fun. Noir, also being played by Christopher Daniel Barnes, I think was an absolutely brilliant choice, and he adds a lot to that sort of darker toned atmosphere, and I honestly never thought he could do something like that, so it was nice to see that Chris can bring that vocal range. I mean, I probably should have known once he played all those other Spider-Men in the 90s, but most of them don't have that backstreet alley tone. I can't describe it, it's so great. His villains were probably second best in this game. Goblin was great, Vulture was great, and Hammerhead was an absolute elite choice. That's all from Noir though. I think they really brought this guy to life in a great way. Everything involving him gets a 10 out of 10. I really enjoyed this one. Spider-Man 2099. I think this Spider-Man is an interesting case because I feel like this game brought him back into popularity after not seeing him for a while. He only had some very minor appearances or one-shots, so it was nice for this game to bring him back into the spotlight. I feel like this also brought him back into the comics. It's funny to think about, but Spider-Man 2099 only has 83 issues of his mainline series. He doesn't even have 100 books, so he's very low on reading material, especially when you compare him to Miles, which came out a lot later than him. I guess he's still not as popular as I thought. I love Spider-Man 2099. Spider-Man 2099 is great, and I think they do a good job with a much lighter 2099 feeling because I feel like he's not as upbeat in the comics, but here I feel like they were trying to match his voice actor, which makes sense. I do prefer how he acts in Edge of Time compared to this game, but I still think he's a fun time in this game. His villains, in my opinion, are good. They have a lot of variety and are all new, which gives him some interesting lore. What I like with 2099's combat is how fast he feels in combat, which was definitely done on purpose, and they do a great job with it. The only thing I hate is when you're going into his accelerated vision power, you have such a hard time seeing things, and it's not a visually pleasing power. I understand what they were going for, but I just wish they had given you a slow-mo effect that's not giving you a hard time to see. This futuristic tone they had with 2099, they seem to have done a lot with. That ADHD vibe really pops out at you because it's not that you have to move fast, it's the whole level of you just keeping it going. And I have to mention Edge of Time here because it's a good comparison. They handled that part well in that game with making things feel a certain way. Like in that game, it feels like you're running out of time. And in this one, it feels like everything is moving super fast, but it fits that 2099 atmosphere and they nailed it. Not too much to say about 2099. I think they did a really good job. 8 out of 10.
Now neither one of you are doing exactly your Spider-Man exactly the way that you used to do it. So what was it like putting kind of a variation on that?
Yeah, that was what was really different. When I was first approached to do this, I thought, great. I mean, you know, I'm 30 years older, my voice is a little different. I wonder how I'm going to handle this. Spider-Man 2099 is very different from the Spider-Man of Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. Bear in mind, that was a Saturday morning kids show, so it had to be, you know, kid-friendly. This is much grittier. He's much tougher. The thing that I liked, though, was the wisecracks are still all there. And the script, I don't know who's responsible for writing a lot of the lines, but some of the lines, I don't know who did this, but, that would be, nice job, man. So 2099 retains a lot of his humor, but it's also much tougher. And some of these, in the middle of the battle, you'll switch to your Spidey's point of view, which is really awesome because you're right up against the villain, right in your face. So it's pretty intense stuff.
Well, for me, I just came off of Spectacular Spider-Man, which it didn't necessarily follow all of the Ultimate continuity. It kind of picked and choose from a lot of different Spider-Man incarnations, but my performance was pretty much the same as in terms of tone and attitude as what I did on Spectacular Spider-Man. And the one thing, the voice I always heard in my head when I was reading the comics, when he's Spidey, he's cocky and he gets under his opponent's skin, and he's kind of the trash talker of the Marvel universe. And I wanted to make sure that wasn't lost. That's a huge part of the character to me, and that's one of the reasons I enjoyed him so much and what made him so fun. So I wanted to make sure that I could do whatever I could to keep that in there. But I didn't really have to work too hard. There's a lot of funny stuff in there.
I must add that when you guys play the game and you see Ultimate Spider-Man facing Ultimate Deadpool, it's great. Humor's great.
Yeah. Ultimate Spider-Man. One thing I loved about the Ultimate levels is just how funny his Spider-Man is.
If it isn't the spectacular spider smut!
Oh, dude, pants! No one wants to see your junk.
That is That's the spot. Yeah, baby. Like that. Right there.
Ew. Do you and your generator, need some time alone?
I'm becoming more than powerful. I'm becoming unstoppable.
And you're still not wearing any pants, so 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
I have become a being of pure energy. Without pants.
It also helped that he's played by the funniest Spider-Man in my opinion, which is Spectacular Spider-Man, and he also fits this youthful Peter insanely well, and honestly none of the other guys could play him, so this was a perfect role for him. One thing I am different on is about Ultimate's combat, specifically his unique ability, which is the Rage Mode. Rage Mode made some parts way too easy, and I mostly mean boss fights because you feel like an absolute monster destroying all the enemies in your path, which I liked because that's how the symbiote should feel, but on the other hand I was thinking, was this too easy? And looking back, I think they made the boss fights hard enough to a point where it's not too easy, but you can feel like you are absolutely demolishing them, and it feels really good wearing the symbiote, especially when you're demolishing everything in your path. I'm going to say this again, this feels better than the Insomniac Spider-Man 2 black suit, just because I felt like I was being rewarded if I did a good job with it. That Rage Mode meter gave me my dopamine hit when I could keep it for as long as I possibly could. In Insomniacs, you'll get stuck in an animation after you beat an enemy, and that kind of makes you lose your flow a bit in my opinion. And that game rewards you for building up that rage meter, but you don't continuously have the rage meter. You lose it at some point, but you have to keep building it from hitting enemies. At some points, the symbiote didn't feel rewarding in that game, and it made you feel a bit stronger, but I want to feel like a powerhouse, and I think this one does a great job with that. By the way, this is not me hating Insomniac Spider-Man because I don't hate him, and I feel like someone is going to think that I dislike him or something. I just don't like how they handled the symbiote's gameplay in that game, and the story was not great in that game. What I really appreciate about Ultimate's dimension is how well they used it to their advantage. We have tons of references to the Ultimate Universe, my favorite being the Triskelion shield base, while the others I don't think they do as well of a job because you can already count Amazing out from the very start since Kraven died in the 80s, but maybe they were going for an earlier counterpart of Amazing. I don't know. I feel like they could have done something to make it feel more connected to the mainline comics version. I think Web of Shadows actually does the best job at this with us getting a good amount of Marvel references and some story things like Wolverine asking comic questions to see if you're the real Spider-Man. Something like that just shows that you're supposed to be the mainline comics Peter. I don't think it's too important for him since you could just say it's a Spider-Man in an infinite pool of Spider-Men, but Ultimate clearly shown that he's not just a Spider-Man with a black suit, which I adore because it feels so right. And funnily enough, this is technically my first introduction to Ultimate because I wasn't reading Spider-Man comics till I was in middle school. He very much feels like the Ultimate Peter, which I appreciated, especially as a fan of the Ultimate Spider-Man comics. I have nothing but good things to say about his levels, maybe besides Electro, because he was the weakest one, but Deadpool's an absolute banger, and Carnage was an absolute banger too. Top tier, might be the 2 best levels in the game. That's all I have to say about Ultimate. He's easily my favorite for a multitude of reasons. I think he was done with the most care, and it's clear the amount of passion they had for his comic counterpart. Ultimate gets an easy 10 out of 10 for me. Now we are going to move on to the Spider-Man Shattered Dimension entries, which isn't in an iceberg format just because there's not much to go over, so let's get into that now. Small things. Deadpool and Electro are seen on the Triskelion and the Carnage level, and I think that's such a great detail. There was concept art found for a Web of Shadows too, and guess what was found? This Mysterio design from Shattered Dimensions. So this was originally going to be Mysterio's Web of Shadow design, which is so freaking cool. In the Sandman final boss fight, you can see Juggernaut's helmet, which can be used to throw at Sandman, which is a nice hint of the next boss fight for Amazing. There's dialogue on how Kraven got the tablet, and it's absolutely hilarious, and I'll play that now.
Hey Kraven, how'd you snare that fragment anyway?
Completely ignorant in the ways of modern man, my friend. I secured it all.
You're joking.
No, I had the winning bid.
Yes, Kraven won an eBay bid. Congrats, my guy. One thing I forgot to talk about with Noir is that he gets new abilities in this game like web slinging. He can usually just shoot webs, but I guess they weren't strong enough to web sling on. That's why he says this in the game.
I have gifted you with new web swinging powers. They will be useful in this respect.
Oh, I like this. Thanks for the enhanced powers, lady. The webs normally just kind of splatter everywhere.
Also, they got the Spider-Man 2099 doesn't have spider sense right, but Madam Web gives him it to find the tablet fragment. This track plays near the end of the Spider-Man 2099 Hobgoblin level. This sounds very similar to Spider-Man's 2099 theme in Across the Spider-Verse, which is a neat little thing.
That was really fun. The difficult part on that one was originally that game was supposed to be with Spider-Man with Doc Strange, and they were both together fighting Dormammu. but a deal was made for a Doctor Strange movie, so they pulled him, and we ended up with Madam Web and Mysterio as the bad guy. But Mysterio doesn't have any real powers, so that was sort of an issue of what do we do. So having worked on the series on the tablet of time, I was familiar with the tablet of time. That's why for that game, we made up another tablet in that series, the tablet of space and dimension or something. I can't remember what it was.
Right.
So that possessing that tablet would have given Mysterio actual powers. So that's why he wanted it so badly, and yet it also sort of seemed to fit with the Marvel lore of those tablets that had been already established. What I loved about that game, the real find for me on that game was prior to that game, I wasn't familiar with Spider-Man Noir, and I just fell in love with that version of Spider-Man. I thought it was so great.
Well, and that's Christopher Daniel Barnes. That's the voice of Spider-Man for the animated series, coming in to do the voice of that character.
Yeah, and the art style for that level, those were the levels that when I would go in and play test the levels, I would sit there and I had to be playing all of them, right, to see what was working and whatnot. But boy, I loved playing those levels. I loved the way he looked in that long duster coat. I loved the way they did the black and white spider sense. So that next Christmas, then after I discovered that, all the guys I'd worked with on Spider-Man the Animated Series, John and Jim, my friend Ernie, I gave them all hard copies of Spider-Man Noir that I found at comic book shops. They're like, you guys got to read this version of Spider-Man. It's really cool.
The first Deadpool voice actor ever, John Cassir, actually voices one of the crazy fan henchmen in the game. In the concept art, it seems like they did have another idea for the final Mysterio level with this image of him chucking cars and Ultimate saving them. So maybe they did have a different idea, like I said, for the final encounter, because something does seem very off about it, but we'll never know. Spider-Ham at the end of the game is obviously a reference to that version of him in the comics. There's actually quite a bit of references to other spider heroes behind Madam Web, and I will go over the ones that I can see and I'll show you the exact comic panels they come from. So first you have Betty Brant as Spider-Girl, there's Mangaverse Spider-Man, What If Spider-Man Never Became a Crime Fighter Spider-Man, there's Mayday Parker, which is Peter and Mary Jane's child in an alternate universe, the Japanese Spider-Man, there's Noir, Ultimate, and 2099, which are in the game, obviously. This one is Bull Point Spider-Man, which is Bruce Banner, and this guy is really cool. Check him out. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I see Spider-Man from 1602 in there, but it's a bit hard to make out. There's Spider-Ham in there. I see Jameson's son as Spider-Man. I see Ashley Barton in here, which I didn't know who she was, so I had to do some huge digging. Her grandparent is Peter Parker, but her parents are Clint Barton and Tonya Barton. I see the Indian Spider-Man in here. I see Spider-Man Poison from the What If Other comic. I think that's Neversoft Spidey from the PS1 game since he has no lines on his suit, and his eyes are very similar. There's this suit that looks like Kane's Scarlet Spider suit, but that can't be because that suit wasn't seen till much later on, so I actually don't know. I did a lot of research on this, probably more than I should have, and I still can't find whose suit this is. So if anyone knows, please comment. From what I know, that's all of them, but again, it's a bit hard to see, but I think I got all of them. Last thing I want to mention is if you played a little bit of Shattered Dimensions, you will unlock some suits from that game for Edge of Time, and it will say thank you for playing Shattered Dimensions, and you get some of the suits, which is neat. I wish games would do that more often nowadays. Shattered Dimensions Remastered. There was supposedly going to be a Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions remaster for the newer gen consoles at the time, so the previous ones, Xbox One and the PS4, but this never fell through, and of course the only source for this is a Reddit user, which is the most untrustworthy source, but the fact that big time Spidey channels at the time were making videos about this, just from a news article claiming this as a Reddit user as their source, is laughable. Like, are you kidding? Don't get me wrong, I would love to get a Shattered Dimensions remaster. Let me eat it up, but I doubt we'll get that anytime soon, unfortunately, but if we do, I will play the hell out of that game. I also think this would bring back some love for Ultimate Spider-Man, specifically the one from the early 2000s, because he's been in the dumper ever since Miles took over as the Spider-Man for that universe, and then that universe got completely destroyed, but it's just weird he's like never been seen again. He's been seen now and then, but like he's barely seen at all. Spider-Verse concept. Dan Slott didn't create the Spider-Verse, he didn't. That was John Semper in 1998 with Spider-Man TASM, but the credit keeps going to Dan Slott because he made the Spider-Verse comics, and I think that it's important for us to know that this didn't start in the comics or this game. Even Mark Hoffmeyer, who is the key writer for Shattered Dimensions, got the idea from Spider-Man the Animated Series because he worked on that show. I have absolutely nothing against Dan Slott. I don't prefer a lot of his stories, but I did in fact fall in love with a superior Spider-Man, and I think he gets too much of a bad rap sometimes, but people claim he invented the Spider-Verse, but that wasn't him. My idea of a Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions too. Okay, for a new Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions, I think we have different Spider-Man, but we keep some of the originals. Like, you have to keep Amazing, like that's a no-brainer, but you should keep one of the other Spider-Man. So unfortunately, Ultimate is dead, but you could just say he was another Ultimate Spider-Man that was on the universe right next to that one, then have Miles in the game and them having some fun dialogue. Noir would be your basic pick, but not a bad pick. Then 2099 would also be a good pick since he worked with him in Edge of Time, so they have even more of a connection. So Amazing is decided. I think we can't go with Ultimate again just because of the format the lore is in. Like, you'd have to know quite a bit of lore and it would be harder for casual players to get. Plus, Miles is kind of from his universe, and since he's popular and a good Spider-Man, he'll be added to this theoretical Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions too. So it's down to either Noir or 2099. I think the safe and better bet would be to go with 2099. Again, they have already built him up in Edge of Time, so I think the natural second choice would be 2099. Now, the fourth one is a bit of a tricky situation, but I think the perfect choice, and hear me out, would be Superior Spider-Man. And I mean comic Superior Spider-Man. It can be a variant, not the actual one, but I think that'd be amazing. Superior would have a hard time working together with his other counterparts. I think they could have some interesting dialogue. I think that he has a certain charm to him that works well and could be perfect for a game setting. You could do a ton of things with his gameplay, especially with his arms and his spider bots. You could use him in a bunch of unique ways. They could build off what they were doing with Amazing Spider-Man's combat for him and give him more things to do with his webs. For Miles, obviously you have the Venom ability to play with, and I think they could have some fun combat scenarios with it. They could also build off 2099's combat a bit too and give him some cool and unique things to do as well. I would keep Josh as Amazing. Niles can be Najee Jeter because he does perfect in the Insomniac games. 2099 as Christopher Daniel Barnes. And then for Superior, I think Yuri would do a good job, or Robbie Damian possibly. Hear me out though. The Synced Voice Network. I'll let you hear a clip.
Is your entire vocabulary comprised of empty platitudes? Your inner voice is right, fool. Someone of your power and intellect should own a home by now. Several. Good heavens, man. You could have a Nobel Prize if you weren't such a navel-gazing child, leaping around like a clown for the approval of complete strangers. Spare me your cliches about power and responsibility, and the inevitable caveats that allow you to rationalize your failures. I am well aware that you cannot save everyone, but I am Otto Octavius, one of the finest minds on this earth. I should have thought of something.
What do you guys think? Or do you even agree with this lineup at all? Let me know in the comments on how you would do a Shattered Dimensions 2. I personally don't think Insomniac would fit just because of how similar he is to our main Spider-Man. You could even have him switched out for Amazing, but then there's already Miles here, but he could be Insomniac Miles. God, there's so many different versions of the characters, it gets confusing. But I think I had a good choice, but the thing is, I think it'd be much harder to distinguish each world. Amazing can have his normal comic levels, and 2099 can have his futuristic levels, but what does Superior and Miles have? What I think I'd do is put Miles on the same Earth as the Ultimate Peter was and say that their world was never destroyed. And I'd say for Superior, Madam Web got him to go to other dimensions for some reason. Maybe the artifact is combining into a bunch of different dimensions and he needs to go to stop them. And so technically you could have him revisit the Noir universe in one of his levels. I'm not going to go through the plot and which villains each of them would face, but I think that would be a nice starting point for a Shattered Dimensions 2. Wii version of Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions. The Wii version of Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions is completely the same, but the catch is this game looks like garbage. But honestly, I appreciate the effort to put it on the Wii, just because if no one had a PS3 or Xbox, they could still play the game, but I honestly can't stand the quality of it. I understand that they had to make do, but I think I'm just used to having everything in 1080p HD because, you know, I can't stand how it looks. But maybe if I grew up with it, then I wouldn't have such an issue with it because I don't think of anything when I see the MTV Spider-Man show. DS version of Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions. The DS version of Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions is a completely different game than the one we all know and love. It's one of those games that was different if you weren't playing on the mainline consoles, which I just assume was made to confuse kids so that their parents would look at the cheaper game and get them that instead, and then you couldn't do anything about it, which is stupid. They also did the same thing with Web of Shadows, and I was fooled when I was a kid of this exact thing. The thing is, I've heard this port isn't terrible, but obviously it doesn't beat the main console port. So to everyone that had the DS game, I'm sorry for you, but I hope you enjoyed your time. What sucks about this port is there's no Ultimate Spider-Man, and I think that's just because they would have thought he would have been too hard to implement. What's funny is they even took Ultimate off the cover of the cartridge to make sure to let you know that you are not going to be playing in the black suit. This game is a Metroidvania kind of game. It still has Stan Lee narrating the game, which is a plus. The story plays out a bit differently. Mysterio finds the tablet in some construction site. Apparently he's been searching for the tablet for years, and he wants Spider-Man destruction televised, but in their fight, Spider-Man breaks the tablet by trying to yank it with his web, and it just breaks. Madam Web goes to Spider-Man explaining that he broke the tablet. Now it's opening dimensional rifts, spreading the tablet between time and space, and we have to pass the tablet to the other two Spider-Man so that they can get the tablet's power to locate the other missing pieces. So when you send the tablet through the portals, it will make you play a little mini game. We go to Noir and he can't wall crawl at all for some reason. And I'm not kidding, his gameplay has nothing to do with stealth. In fact, all of the Spider-Men play the exact same way, except they have like little very minor things about them. Like Noir can reveal secrets in the environment, but combat is completely the same for all of them. Noir is going for the fragment, but he runs into this universe's version of Boomerang, and that's basically how it works. You keep handing off the tablet to the other Spider-Men so they can find their piece, and you fight bosses along the way. As you can tell, the boss roster is different. Noir has to fight Calypso, which is such a weird choice. Like insanely weird because they had so many villains to choose from, but they do say she's trying to bring Kraven back from the dead, which is a good reason to try and grab the fragment. 2099 fights Vulture and Silvermane, then Amazing fights Electro and Tinkerer. You beat Mysterio, blah blah blah, but when you beat the game you can unlock the black suit, which is nice. Wasn't expecting too much from this version, and there's not much here from this version anyway. Before I leave this entry, they also replaced Neil Patrick Harris with Josh Keaton, and I think that's just because Neil is the least recognizable as Spider-Man, and also he's expensive probably. And also a DS game probably wasn't for him. Also in the DS version, Spider-Man Noir is seen as Peter Parker, but as a bonus costume. Other heroes referenced. Ultimate Spider-Man's levels reference other Marvel heroes, and I'll play those now.
Oh man, where am I gonna find another fan that big and antisocial? I don't know. How friendly are you with Ben Grimm? Vulture show with our special guest, Walt from the Webs.
This is also another Ultimate reference from Ultimate Spider-Man issues number 66 and 67.
There is a world of spirits, unseen by most, but just as real as our own. And when you need a guide to penetrate inner mysteries, you know who to call. Hey, what's green and makes noise? What? The Incredible Honk! Inquiring minds want to know, how come I'm beating you so easily? Now I know how Bruce Banner feels. Except I'm like in control.
In the Hobgoblin level, there's advertisements that promote Hulk, Wolverine, and Black Cat.
I've been working here for years, and I still can't believe that Alchemax just flat out ripped off the Avengers logo.
End credits. The end credits show the villains in humorous situations. Kraven, whose head is bandaged up, fails to catch a rabbit. Sandman is put in an hourglass by Spider-Man. Juggernaut is captured by Silver Sable. Hammerhead has his guns attached to his arms with duct tape. Vulture is jailed with people laughing at him. Goblin becomes a balloon man for children. Hobgoblin teams up with the other flightless goblins. Scorpion learns how to use scissors in prison. Doc Ock becomes a mother of various hobgoblins and scorpions. Electro hides his nudity in a bush. Deadpool is trapped on a deserted island. Carnage becomes friends with some of the S.H.I.E.L.D. zombies and even takes a selfie. And Mysterio starts feeding fish. I won't lie, the art on these is absolutely fantastic and I love it. I have no clue if these are canon and it doesn't really matter because these are supposed to be little silly things, but I'm not sure if it is just because we see Deadpool on the Triskelion. Maybe S.H.I.E.L.D. went after him later or something, I don't know. Or they were just tracking the fight and they were tracking Deadpool. I'm looking too deep into it. Let's move on to the next. Beginning marketing. There's one thing I like about how this game was marketed. They would keep secret on who the other two Spider-Man are in the beginning, so the game would be announced on March 30th, 2010, with them only revealing Amazing and Noir. Then on June 8th, the 2099 dimension was revealed. Then finally at San Diego Comic-Con in late July, they revealed Ultimate Spider-Man. I like the slow build up on who might have been the next Spider-Man. I don't know how much hype there was, but I would have been really excited to see what Spider-Man I can play as next. And if they did make a second one, I could see in this day and age this being a big talking point about the game since the Spider-Verse is this big thing now. I would love me a Shattered Dimensions 2. Give it to me, now. What's cool is they had a Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions launch party, so when the game launched, all the people that worked on the game got together, and a bunch of people that love Spider-Man had a party, and there's actual footage of the party, and I'll leave it in the description if you would like to check it all out. But this is cool that they had all the people come out here to play their new game, and it just seemed like a really fun time. Voice actors. The voice actors for this game are phenomenal, of course. We have all the Spider-Man being voiced by people that have already played Spider-Man in the past, and they do a fantastic job. I'm just going to go over the ones that have played the same roles again, but not going too deep into it. Hammerhead from the game is played by John DiMaggio, and he's voiced Hammerhead in Spectacular Spider-Man. Steve Bloom played Hobgoblin, and he did the voice of the Green Goblin from Spectacular Spider-Man, and also Green Goblin in Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, and Venom in Marvel Rivals. And I'll also mention that he voiced Wolverine in like a ton of things. Nolan North played Deadpool, and has played Deadpool in countless things, I think most notably his own game. They brought Jennifer Hale to do Silver Sable, and she voiced Felicia Hardy in Spider-Man the Animated Series, and Mary Jane in Spider-Man Unlimited. Susan Blakesley, I don't know if I got that right, who voiced Madam Web, voiced Wanda, and I'm only mentioning this because the voice actor for Cosmo, who is Darren Norris, voiced Venom in the 2000 Spider-Man video game, and also voiced J. Jonah Jameson and his son on Spectacular Spider-Man. So it's cool that they are both involved in Spider-Man in some way. I'm assuming they wanted to get Joan Lee, Stan Lee's wife, for the voice of Madam Web, which she was in Spider-Man the Animated Series, but she either didn't want to do it or was getting a bit too old to do it. But Suzanne does a great job in the role for Madam Web as well. I wouldn't mind if they brought her in for Madam Web for a Spider-Man 98 revival. The GOAT Tara Strong played 2099 Doc Ock's counterpart, and she played Mary Jane in the Ultimate Spider-Man TV show, Black Cat in Disney Infinity, the Amazing Spider-Man 2 mobile game, and Marvel Superhero Squad Online. Jim Cummings, who voiced Kraven and the Goblin in this game, voiced Crusher Hogan in Spectacular Spider-Man, Shocker, Chameleon, and Man-Spider in the 90s show, and Hammerhead in the 2017 show. Fred Tatasciore, who voiced Carnage, also voiced Rhino in the Marvel Spider-Man games, Max Modell, and a ton of others in the 2017 show, and in the Spider-Man Unlimited game, he played Mysterio and Demo Goblin. Rhino again in the Amazing Spider-Man 2 mobile game, and J. Jonah Jameson on the console version. He also voiced Jonah in Edge of Time, plus the final boss Atrocity. He played Rhino in Web of Shadows, in Spider-Man Friend or Foe he played Sandman and Scorpion, and he's played the Hulk in so many things, and is the definitive version of the character in my opinion, playing my favorite version of the Hulk in EMH, but I say he has 95% of all the Hulk roles. If you've heard Hulk, it's most likely him playing it. He's basically the Kevin Conroy of Hulks. That's all I'm going to mention. There's still some more great voice actors in here I didn't go over, but those are the roles I wanted to mention, so let's keep moving on. Alternate costumes. The alternate costumes for this game aren't that great. They're actually pretty bad, except for a few in my opinion. Noir has his original concept suit, which in my opinion is not looking too great, especially comparing it to the actual Noir suit. Ironically, his concept art suit is looking way better in my opinion, because this suit doesn't fit the Noir universe very well, and the game doesn't do it justice. He has Spider-Man 1602, which is actually a Spider-Man from a different dimension, which we've gone over a little bit, but I really dislike his suit. He has the Negative Zone suit, which is just okay, but again, I think the Noir suit really puts these ones to shame. For Ultimate Spider-Man, he has his original red and blue suit, but it's so bad, and I really dislike it because it just feels like they didn't try with this one. He looks nothing like Ultimate Spider-Man. He has an orangish tint to the red and blue, and it's just way too light, and not like that nice shade of blue that we know Spider-Man usually has. Also, his eyes are way too close together. There's a bit of a gap in between the lenses usually. I think they might have just looked up a picture of the Ultimate Spider-Man #1 cover and gone off that, but that's not a good representation of what the suit actually is. They have him have a sort of purple hue, which doesn't match him whatsoever. Also, they messed up on one of the easiest parts, which is the spider logo. For some reason, his build isn't great either. I didn't really notice it in the black suit, but he's supposed to have a way sleeker and skinnier build, and that's a big problem because you can notice it with his regular costume. But honestly, I'm not expecting them to make a whole new character model just for Ultimate, so maybe I'm just being nitpicky. I still appreciate that it's here, but I wish they would have tried a bit harder with it. The next is the Electro-proof suit, which is such a weird pick because he's never worn the Electro-proof suit. But to be fair, these are the only costumes he's worn in the Ultimate Universe. I honestly would have preferred the X-Men one, even though it's just a shirt and pants, but it's kind of heat. Last is the Mangaverse Spider-Man, which also would have been good if they again had him in a sleeker build. Something just looks very off about this guy, and I also think it's because of the red. It looks a lot more orange than it does red, but I still don't think that would have fixed the suit. I think the boots are just way too big. The next one is 2099's costume, starting with Flipside. This one is just bad, I don't like it. The next one is the Spider Armor, which I actually dig quite a bit. He has the Iron Spider one, which is an absolute banger. What I like about the 2099 suits is he has this little glow that's on the regular Spider-Man 2099, and it fits a lot for all of these costumes. It's like a blue streak going down. It's really cool. For Amazing, he's given the bombastic Bagman suit, and I dig this suit too. What helps with it is the comic book aesthetic, because it makes the color pop out a lot. And the Kick Me paper is on there, which is a bonus. Probably the best this suit has ever looked, honestly. Next up is Secret War Spider-Man, and I've always disliked this suit. It always feels like there's not a straight idea with the suit, and it feels like it's all over the place. Our final suit is the Scarlet Spider suit, and it's heat. There's not much to be said about it. The comic book aesthetic again does the suit justice. They have the big spider on the front. That looks great. That's all the suits in the game. There's not many at all, but I do appreciate the attempt on adding some in here. The only complaint I have is that you use your spider tokens so you can either get upgrades or a suit, and I never really bothered to wear the suits because I wanted to try out more combos. Also, the main suits in my opinion are way better than any of the alternate costumes. so I didn't really care. I only wore some of them while I was going back to the levels to try and get the platinum, which by the way I got for this game. The only one I'm missing is Edge of Time if I wanted all the Spider-Man platinums. They did have a cosmic suit pack as a DLC, but unfortunately you can't get this on consoles anymore, and on PC you just get it at the start of the game. But the concept for the cosmic suits are really cool. I love how they look, but in game it's just not as great. Here's Amazings. I do like that it seems like there was still effort put into it, especially with the cosmic rays on their hands, which they all seem to have. I like Noir's. It's pretty sick, but I can see how people would think it looks goofy, and it obviously doesn't fit the story when he's wearing it. I fuck heavy with Ultimate Spider-Man's cosmic suit. It looks like this guy is actually otherworldly. Then you have 2099s, and I really dislike this one. What sucks is I feel like they could have done something really cool with it too. The Amazing Spider-Man's is the only one that appears from the comics. The other suits were made for this game. What I like is that each suit has a bio. It'll tell you where each suit comes from and the info about it. Also, when you're wearing the Cosmic Suit Pack, they all share the same charge animation as Ultimate. That's all the costumes, and that's the end of the video. I have to show some of the beautiful concept art for this game because it's so cool, but that's all I have to say, so I'll let this play while I'm talking for a bit. Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions was such a fun game to cover. I do plan on going over Edge of Time next, then I want to complete this trilogy of games with Ultimate Spider-Man, which would be a nice way to wrap everything up for the Spider-Man games trilogy. Let me know what you would like to see from me in my next videos. I would also like criticism on these videos, just to see if people actually like me talking about more than just shows, because I did enjoy doing all of this and going over everything and replaying these games. It's all just been a blast. Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes is next up on the video side of things, so this is going to be part of a new trilogy, which is the Team Show trilogy. Just like I had a Spider-Man show trilogy and Spider-Man game trilogy, so stay tuned, it's going to be so good. I want to give a huge shout out to all of the artists for the thumbnail. I think they all did such a fantastic job. Obviously none of the credit goes to me because that is all them and their beautiful artistic talent. Of course they will all be in the description if you want to check them out. Every single one of them is just brilliant. I really couldn't have asked for anything better. This is just perfect. Again, give these guys their props. They all do commissions, so if any of you think their art looks cool, give it a look and give them a follow, and if you want a piece done, I'm sure they will give you something really amazing. Thank all of you guys for putting that effort into that thumbnail. I can't say how appreciative I am because it truly does look amazing. Thank you so much. I would like to give a big shout out to my friend Nate Lambright for scripting a lot of this video. He basically described all of the story in the video, but every thought is my own, and I did all the trivia and all that. He helped me describe the game missions and story, so thank you, Nate. I would appreciate it if you checked out the Patreon. The new video should be up there early, specifically 3 months early, because that's how I've been doing these. You can check things out early just for $1 or wait that 3-month period. These are my Patreon people. I appreciate you guys so much. I had forgot to do the giveaway, so we are going to spin the wheel here. Congrats, Nick Hangerman. I'll email you and try to get in contact with you for the making of the X-Men animated series book, and there will be another giveaway for the Extra Spider-Man the animated series McDonald's toys for this video's giveaway. I just want to say the giveaway was different on the Patreon because I didn't realize he wasn't part of the US, and shipping cost a lot out of country, so I just want to mention I did specify US only, so I apologize. That is completely on me for getting that guy's hopes up. I'm really sorry about that. I can actually check what currency you guys use, so that's on me. I'm sorry for that guy. I really am. I apologize. But I did US only this time. That's the wheel, and that's what we got. So in the future, I will note to check US only. I'm sorry for anyone outside of the US. I just really do not have the money for it. Please check out the Patreon, guys. I would really appreciate it. I am dying with money. I really have none. Yeah, I truly hope you had a great time with me, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace, guys.